Mr. Sepulveda?
Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. Please show in the minutes that Mr. Gomez, Mr. Holguin, Mr. Cordova, myself, I don't see Mr. Guadiana on the board. The president.
I'm here.
Okay. Oh, there you are. All right. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
This is Gabe, I'll second.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any question on agenda items?
There's a question I have that's a question I'm sure that many people are interested in, and that's related to the mill levy. And if we could discuss that, that could probably be included on next week's agenda. It can kind of preempt some questions, and maybe even some people would rather tune in then as opposed to now.
And Mr. Guadiana, Mr. Sepulveda, we've been wanting to do this. We're planning to have a virtual explanation of this. We're inviting the community. It's going to take place next Tuesday. More information is coming later on in the week. They can call in, and I'll be available. And I'm going to ask one board member, and I think the president should be there to answer any questions like virtually right now. So more information, but yeah, we'll include it as a topic for the next one. Okay, no problem.
That's great. But if you could make that so that more than the quorum can attend virtually and announce it that way.
Yeah, no, and then no action will be taken. Yeah, it can be done.
Okay.
I need to know if more board members want to join us. Okay, so
absolutely.
So it'll be next Tuesday, and we were thinking about maybe 5 to 6:30, giving them the public an hour and a half, and we'll be there, and they can ask us questions, and we'll be there. So more information is coming on that, but we'll put it on the agenda. Is Irene on? Do you know?
She's there.
She's
She
on.
should be. Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Any other thing? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion passes. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of January 11th.
Frank Cordova, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second. Second.
Gomez, second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any questions on the minutes?
I didn't get a copy of those via the emails.
You didn't? They were in the email package of well, whenever that thing came out, I'm not sure right now, but yeah, they were there.
Yeah, I reviewed the packet earlier today too, and I didn't see the minutes either.
Did you send them, Irene?
I did. They were on the packet of the 26th.
So was it a separate email?
No, the board packet that you received on the 26th, that's where the board minutes are.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it was my mistake. I didn't see them though.
I didn't see them either. And I printed out pretty much everything that came out. So if we could table this until the next meeting and we could review it then, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on this one. Call for the vote on this one, and then we can make a motion to table. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Call for the vote on this. Mr. Holguin,
I'll say no, and recommend we table.
Mr. Guadiana,
Same thing. No, recommend we table.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion passes 3-2. And Irene, could you please send Gabriel and Mr. Guadiana a copy of the minutes?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Irene.
You're welcome.
Okay, moves us to item 2, update on unfinished business. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, item A is review on status of school reentry readiness, and I'll ask Ms. Barrella to give us an update on our toolkit from the newest one.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, members of the community. So since our last board meeting, we have received from the state 2 additional updates on the COVID response toolkit, one on January 15th, and then they revised that one again on January 26th. And we've also received from them a new re-entry guidance that came out on January 26th. So based on those 2, we are currently in the process of finalizing our district Cobre re-entry plan to include the changes from these 2 new updates of the toolkits and the re-entry plan. So we will have a 4th version of the Cobre re-entry plan available for the board meeting next Monday. So you all will get a copy of that so you can have time to review it before the next board meeting. Some of the changes, the big changes that have been updated on this new toolkit is surveillance testing. So depending on whether our county, this is when we're in, if we're in hybrid, depending on what color our county is, determines the surveillance testing that we have to do. So if our county is in red, we have to continue with 25% surveillance testing, which is what our district wants to do throughout. Because even though our community is on yellow now, we could be red in another week or 2 weeks. So we want to go ahead and just continue what we've been doing with the 25%. They also did an update to the cohort groups at the secondary level, and they changed the definition of close contact. So all of this will be reflected on our new re-entry plan, and I'll go over that a little bit more in detail at the next board meeting when you have our revised re-entry plan. As you all know, beginning the week of February 8th, all schools in all counties may offer in-person services in the hybrid model. But prior to any school being able to open for the hybrid model, we have to receive certification of readiness from a designated state official, including New Mexico Public Education Department and the state or local fire marshal. So schools are required to demonstrate readiness to operate according to the COVID safe practices outlined in the reentry guidance and the rapid response toolkit, which we do have those reflected in our own reentry plan. The certification from the NMPED and fire marshal includes but is not limited to inspection of classroom setup for social distancing, inspection of entrances, hallways, and cafeterias for appropriate signage and designations of traffic patterns, inspection of air filters or air quality enhancement measures, inspection of personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies, and then they will review our school reentry plan as well, looking at our safety and hygiene protocols in addition to that. So with this new certification, well, this new expansion of in-person learning, One of the other changes that came through is that schools that have an enrollment of 100 students or less, and we do have a student in our district that qualifies under this, and that's San Lorenzo, may bring back students in all grade levels for in-person learning in a 5-to-1 student to staff ratio with no more than 6 people per enclosed indoor space, following all COVID safe practices, social distancing, and all health and safety measures must be taken into consideration. Any small school seeking to operate under this model of bringing back all their students must first also get approval for readiness by NMPED and the fire marshal. So to date, Mr. Mendoza has been in contact and is working with New Mexico PED to schedule the fire marshal visit after February 15th. However, he did not commit to a date, because in order for him to commit to a date for the fire marshal to come in, we have to have a date of school opening into hybrid model if that's what the board chooses to do. So if we get a date for that, then Mr. Mendoza would be able to proceed and schedule that date, because we're supposed to do it 2 weeks out of the expected or anticipated start date. We've had a lot of questions about vaccinations. So our staff, again, have been signing up on the Department of Health webpage. I do attend a meeting on Mondays with local health departments, including the Department of Health. And I know that right now there just are not the vaccines throughout the whole United States, and especially here in Grant County, to be able to give vaccines to all the educators at this time. We are on the list for those who have registered. In fact, I myself got a text from Department of Health today that says, thank you that you've registered. We do have you on the list, but because of the shortages of vaccines, you will be notified when one is available for you. So I know that all our staff is in the same situation as far as that's concerned. So that's all I have on my report. If you have any questions. Toy, I think you're talking and you're muted. Sorry, Mr. Sepulveda.
Yeah, here we go. I
That'll work.
just want to say something on the list to get the vaccine. Joyce, I registered December 22nd, and I still haven't gotten it. So there's still a lot of, I guess, people ahead of me. I'm diabetic, so I have an underlying condition, but I'm still waiting for my vaccine. And when I talked to Howie, he told me that there was just not enough vaccine in the state to vaccinate all of our teachers. My thing to him was that if the governor made it a thing that we open schools, they should have made a priority that our teachers not only our teachers, but our whole staff of school employees that want to get the vaccine should have been a priority to get it if that was the case, to open and go to face.
And Mr. Sepulveda, along with that, I did visit with all the principals today. Principals did talk to their staff to find out who was interested in, if we do go hybrid, who's interested in continuing to work from home, who's interested in coming into the buildings. And even people who said they would be willing, they still gave that caveat that I would prefer having my vaccine first. And that's the majority of our staff. We also had principals contacting students, and we had several parents that also made the statement, is the teacher vaccinated? If the teacher's not vaccinated, I do not want my student in that class, my child in that classroom. So those were a couple of the comments we got related to vaccinations.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing too. They're willing to go back, but they sure would like to have the vaccine first.
And in my Monday meeting, one of the things that they also did say is that they have been pushing some of because you have to get 2 vaccines. So they've been pushing the second one out for many of the first responders and healthcare workers to up to 6 weeks, because they want to make sure, and what they're doing right now is they're making sure that all of the people who have gotten their first vaccine have availability to get their second vaccine before they start on the new group. That was the latest message that came out on Monday.
Yeah, and I visited with Joe Gillian on that too, and he said that that's the comments from most of the teachers across the state, that they're willing to go back, but they want the vaccine first.
Mhm.
I have a question, and I appreciate all the comments, and I agree with everything related to the vaccine that's been said. But I had a question regarding the virtual classroom, that if students choose to stay on virtual and or teachers, how is that going to work? I read through our handbook so far, and we mentioned the Cobre Consolidated School District Virtual Learning Academy. And
Right. So, Mr. Guardian, if I can address that, we are currently still working on it. I do have numbers. We have a plan for all of the schools. I can give you a preliminary of what we're looking at, and then maybe give more detail next week. So and I will give you a copy. I have a chart where we've got how many kids in each school and each grade want to remain on hybrid or remote, and I will email that to you also to take a look at it. But right now at the elementary, we have 25% of the student population who want to remain on remote. So I broke that down by grade level. So what we're hoping right now, what we're hoping to do is, based on the numbers per grade level, what we want to do between now and the next board meeting is go back and look how many students would that leave each teacher, because we really don't want to do that online academy at this point. We have a little more than 9 weeks left. We would really prefer to keep face-to-face teachers with all the students. So we may have to do some shifting of students from one teacher to another so that we can be able to pool staff so that our teachers can continue to do the remote learning, one teacher per grade level. And based on the numbers and the breakdown that we have, that appears to be very doable for that. We've also, I met with Mr. Avalos today as well at the middle school. And we have 20% of the population that wants to remain on remote. So he and Sinaida are working on it, and we know that we can pull that off as well to keep all the students at the middle school with a teacher for the content for sure, the math, the language arts, the science, the history, the bilingual, and then we're still working out the details for the electives so that we can continue to have our teachers teach those kids. And again, that means we're going to have to shift some of the schedules that are currently in place. I also met with Ms. Peru and Ms. Montoya at the high school, and we have a plan at the high school as well. Ms. Montoya stated that the teachers didn't really want to lose their kids that they're working with now. So we have a way that the teachers would do the hybrid during the day if that's what we choose to do. And then every teacher would have an hour a day where they would have a minimum of an hour a day where they would make direct contact with the students to check on them, to provide direct instruction, to help them with any support that they need. So Sandra, Ms. Montoya, and Ms. Peru, correct me if I'm wrong. So Mr. Guardian, in answer to that, we have a plan to not have to do Edgenuity. We think we have a better plan. We just need a few more days to finalize it. So that's why we want to, bring back the final how we would do this to the next board meeting. But that's what we're looking at right now.
Judge, and that survey of how many kids wanted to go to school and how many wanted to stay home, did that survey go to parents, or was that just a survey with the kids?
So, Mr. Sepulveda, at all the schools, the teachers contacted the parents. The only one that did it just a little bit different was Snell Middle School. What they did was they surveyed the students, and any student who said they were that they were going to stay remote, then follow-up phone calls were made to all those parents to confirm if that's what parents wanted to do.
Yeah, because the kid can say, oh, yes, I want to go to school, but the ultimate decision is made by the parent. So
Right.
I think the survey should have gone to the parent, not the kids.
Correct. And in most cases, it was direct phone calls. It wasn't a survey that was sent. It was direct phone calls to the parents that were made.
Okay.
If I may, I respond to that, please. Good afternoon, everybody, Mr. President, of the board. Obviously, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take a poll of what the needs of our students are, what they're wanting to be. We did, we due to the fact that we are very Google orientated, we can come up with a survey and do a poll really quickly in classes with the students. Obviously, we do understand that the ultimate decision is going to be made by parents. We wanted to just take a quick, like a little straw poll to see what the students were saying and what they felt, and then based on that, as we already spoke in our parent and our, should I say, our teacher meeting this morning, is that we did have a drive-through yesterday and today. As parents were coming through, we asked every individual parent what their intent was. We took the list of the students who had already said that they may not be back, and we are already conducting phone calls with some of those. And here within the next week or so, we're going to have all our first period teachers contact the remaining parents that we have not been in contact with to make sure that we are doing that we're getting the accurate word from the parents to see whether or not they're going to be on the hybrid, want the hybrid model, or be able to have the virtual option themselves. We're already seeing in talking to some of the parents, and there's still a lot of indecisiveness out there. They're very concerned about the models that we're going to proceed with, and I think until that is finalized and that we have those plans in place, then we'll probably see a little bit more firm decision on those with those parents, and we're seeing a lot of that right now. Okay.
And we
Thank you, guys.
And I think that the majority of that will hinge on whether we get our teachers vaccinated or not.
Mhm. Yeah. And so
I
when
have a question.
Go ahead.
So my question is, all the teachers, I understand the concern from the teachers, and they want to be vaccinated before we allow a bunch of kids that may be carrying germs or whatever into their classrooms. But how many of those teachers have factors or conditions that increase their risk of severe illness? I mean, do we know that? Do we have any data that supports that, they're at risk or they're not at risk? Is it just an overwhelming fear or concern, or is it fear that they're going to take it to somebody else? Or do we actually have data that supports that we have teachers that are in these at-risk, have these at-risk conditions that are causing them all this concern?
Yes. So, Mr. Holguin, it's a little bit of both. There is the general fear. However, with that general fear, the majority of our teachers have said they would be willing to come back, but they prefer to have the vaccine first. So right now we have 16 teachers and 3 EAs who have said they have pre-existing conditions. So what the process for them is, they have to submit a letter and make an appointment to meet with Mr. Mendoza. So Mr. Mendoza is the person who makes the final decision and reviews their rationale for why they want to stay out. And he's the one that will determine whether or not he will approve that.
And how many of those go back home to ill parents or aging parents that could get it from them maybe not even showing symptoms?
And those are included, Mr. Sepulveda, right now with the 16 that will be meeting with Mr. Mendoza.
I would just say, have we really done a thorough risk assessment and considering all the factors, all the mitigations? Because in my mind, I think that if we do return to a hybrid model, a piece of that is our communication. We really need to communicate out to the parents, to the grandparents, and make sure to let them know what the risks are that we're willing to take by allowing our kids back in school, and share with them, our recommendations to, stay isolated. Maybe you're not going to get to see your grandkid for the next 2 months, or, maybe you need to do like a virtual Zoom meeting or Teams meeting with them on daily, so you can have that interaction with them. I think that a lot of that is personal, watching out for your personal safety. And when I say I don't know that we've done a really good risk assessment, I mean, are we really doing what's right for our kids? I mean, we have kids that are at risk. They rely on the school for food. I mean, to get a decent lunch. They rely on the school to get out of an abusive neighborhood environment, a father, a bad situation that they might be in at home. School is their safe harbor. And we're providing that for them by allowing them to go to school. I mean, they actually come to school and they see somebody, they get to interact with teachers and, other staff that show them that they care about them. So when I say this, I mean, have we really thought about what's in their best interest? I mean, kids don't get as sick as the adults do. So I think a lot of that responsibility goes back to the adults and the people that have those at-risk pre-existing conditions to take it upon themselves to isolate themselves and to do what's right for them. And I think we really need to look at what's in the best interest of our kids.
And Mr.
Yeah,
Aldini,
but by the same token, what I've seen and what I've heard is that some of these kids test positive but show no symptoms whatsoever, no fever, no nothing, and yet they do test positive, and then they go to school and they give it to a teacher who could end up in a ventilator. Right now, I'm going to tell you, from January to December of last year, in my family, we lost 17 people. This year, we've already lost one that were relatives to us. And right now, I've got a nephew that is on a ventilator in Santa Fe, and his mom is on a ventilator in El Paso, in Las Cruces. I've got a neighbor who's been on a ventilator since before Christmas. And by God, to me, that is something that we really need to take a look at. Some of these kids that show no symptoms at all, but yet they go home to a grandparent, or they go home to a mom and dad that could end up in one of those. And then where do those kids go? To a foster home? To some place like that? Do we want that?
Mr. President, I've got a couple of questions. This is Frank Cordova, and I appreciate the fact that we're talking about the safety of the teachers and the safety of the kids and the safety of everybody, but I'm going to hit it from a kind of a little different angle. Are we ready to open the schools? And by that, I mean, okay, our high school, the gym, is it going to pass the air quality? What about Hurley? My understanding in talking to parents, staff, there's no heating or cooling at Hurley. That extra building there, yeah, they put the skirting on, but nothing else has happened. Did they even level it before they put the skirting on? Are we going to pass those with the inspector? The other question that I've got is, we lost a janitor in Hurley to COVID, that he's out right now. Is he going to get replaced? Is this going to be a temporary reassignment? What are we going to do there for staff? Do we have enough staff to clean these places? The other thing is, okay, the Snell, we said that we're bringing the 6th graders in. Are we ready for them? Did the furniture get put in there? Did the drop downs get down for them? My question is, okay, we ordered 125 air purifiers. Did we need all those purifiers in every room? Does that mean that none of our schools are going to pass? If we didn't need them in every room, why did we go spend the money just to store them somewhere? Those are the things that I would like to hear also as part of the reentry thing. Yes, I'm very concerned about the safety of our kids and the safety of our staff and the safety of everybody. The bus drivers, what is the concern there? Have they agreed to get tested? Have they gotten the shots? Have they what's our status there? Go ahead, Joyce.
Mr. Sepulveda, I can answer some of them, and then I'm going to defer some of your questions to Mr. Peru. On the bus drivers, yes, the bus drivers and the aides, they are getting tested monthly, the same as the rest of our staff. Mr. Peru, I'm going to defer some of those questions to you, please.
Okay, no problem. Yes. On Hurley Elementary, yes, they leveled it before we skirted it. They once they leveled it, they also welded everything in place underneath with the plates because we welded to the beams so we could make sure that it stayed level. It was pretty bad off in one of the classrooms, and then on the opposite corner, which was the southwest corner, was bad also. So we leveled that also, and then we skirted it. The tie-in to the fire alarm is on hold until they can get here. They had scheduled to be up here on February 8th. He called me and told me that he's going to have to wait because 2 of his guys came down with COVID. So the guys he was sending are not going to be able to come. And they were going to be working on Hurley portable. They were going to work on the Bayard portable. And they were also going to finish up what they needed to do at Snell. At Snell, it's not so much of it's more of a wiring thing because we have all the wire running through there. So that portion, he said, was not as bad, and he can probably get that one passed when the fire marshals come. He said that he would get us the paperwork so we can make sure we do that with Snell. The heating and cooling is all the mechanical stuff is done on the pumps. We ran into a software problem. All the schools, we run everything off like computers so we can adjust heat and do that so it can be more efficient. What happened at Hurley is it's not communicating. The system is not communicating with our servers. So there's an update that we're looking at. Mr. Arambula is working with the guy from El Paso so that we can try and get that upgraded and taken care of. He also ran into a problem. He was working with Mr. Arambula, and he had some other people working with him. And they came down with COVID, so they're not working with him right now at this point. He's waiting to get another person on board so that we can finish that up and get those things done. That's where we're at on those 2 buildings. And I forgot what the other question was, Mr. Cordova.
The other question was the air purifiers. And I'll tell you, I got a friend in Chaparral who said they ordered those same air purifiers 2 months ago, and they're still in back order. So I don't know when we're going to get them.
The person that we ordered them from is Gorman Industries up in Albuquerque. He is expecting them to hit his office on the 15th, and then they're going to ship them to us. That's the timeline he gave us was February 15th.
Mr. Peru, I thought that we were ordering the purifiers that go inside the ductwork.
We were going to order those, and then Miss Holguin and Mr. Mendoza had visited with the people from the state, and they recommended that we go with the ones that they had certified. There was 5 companies that they did through the state website and state procurement, and they recommended that we go with those because those are the ones that the state was approving for us to get in order for us to get reimbursement for them.
It seems like the stuff that goes inside the ductwork would be more efficient and less expensive.
And it'd be less noisy also. We talked about that also.
Yeah, that was my concern. You put one of those in a classroom, and boy, it's going to be like running an air conditioner in there for kids to hear.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding, they're plug-in model, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Weren't the
The other question was about the gymnasiums. We ordered 8 for the high school gym so that we can run. We figured with the square footage they run and they put out that we would have to run 8 of them in the gym in order to them to circulate and clean and purify everything in the high school gym. There's 4 that we ordered for Snell gym, so to make sure that we have that covered. So there's 12 units that go just in the gyms alone.
Joyce, I had some questions also. One of the things that's not in our plan, and we discussed lunches in the classroom, and we'd be talking, we had mentioned that it would be the same as the delivery now, but many of the lunches as they're delivered require heating up. And how's that going to take place?
So right now, we are looking at serving the meals in the classrooms for breakfast and lunch. So I would have to defer that question to Elma regarding I don't know if she's on or not, but we've done it in the past, Mr. Guadiana. For years, we've had breakfast in the classroom, and that's been doable. And I know that our pre-Ks do get served in the classroom on a daily basis. So we will be able to serve our kids. And one of the recommendations that had come from the state was to have individual, like in a bag, so that each person has their individual lunch.
Yeah, and that's the way it's delivered now. But as it's delivered, I say a vast majority of the times, it includes things that need to be heated. And I don't know if Alma's got the potential to do that, and so that it would be ready. Is something that might have to be done in the classroom.
Okay, so Mr. Guadiana, for next meeting, we will ask Alma to come so she can give additional clarification on that.
Okay, and I had some questions regarding what you presented in terms of trying to keep the students that are interested in going virtual the rest of the year. The percentage was 25% in the elementary, 20% in Snell, and I didn't get the percentage for the high school.
19.
19. That's a sizable amount, and we're talking about possibly 1 hour a day with the teacher on a virtual platform to teach them. Is that the way it is?
I'll let Maureen and Ms. Montoya give you some additional information on that for the high school.
And this relates to all schools, by the way.
Well, no, all schools are going to be different. So what the elementaries are doing would be different from the middle school, and the elementaries would be pretty similar. The high school is going to be different from the rest of the schools.
So what we're looking at, good evening, board, at the high school, and Maureen, you can chime in anytime, is not getting the students on Edgenuity and working with the teachers to where the 2 days they are in class, they will get their work for the 2 days they're out of class. The ones that are strictly remote will continue to meet with the teachers in the afternoon to get their work and instruction at that time.
How many hours would that be for that last group you just mentioned?
Around 4, if they're meeting every day.
Okay, that's better than the 1 hour that I assumed. And for elementary schools and middle school, how would that be different, Joyce? Thank you.
So for elementary schools, it would be, for elementaries and middle school would be very similar to what they're doing now. They would have, for example, first grade would have 1 teacher. So it would be very similar to the way they're instructing right now for the remote, and the same thing for the middle school, because we would have various teachers that would teach the different subjects. So they would have 7 to 8 subjects per day at the middle school.
Okay.
So what would happen at the elementary and middle school would be almost parallel to what's happening right now.
Because I too wouldn't like to see them go off to Ingenuity, and I've heard teachers also not want to let them go that route.
Right.
Have we made any payments to Ingenuity?
No, we have an open PO. We never put any kids in there, so we have not made any payments to them. The PO is ready. If we needed it, we could initiate it immediately, but we have not paid anything on it.
Okay. And I received an email that covered a lot of the issues we talked about, one with the exception of plexiglass in the classrooms. Has there been a determination of need for plexiglass in the classrooms, and has that been done?
So what we have done so far is we have submitted the scope of work. We've gone through the procurement process. We've done the measuring, and we're in the process of reviewing the quotes. So that's for what we're looking at right now is the plexiglass in the office areas, the library, and then we're looking at getting I don't know how to explain it. I guess it'd be called a desk shield for each classroom in the district, so that teachers, if they're working one-on-one with a student, they'd be able to use that. We're using it as a desktop model so that it could be portable if they need to move it from one location to the other within the classroom.
And when do you expect that to be ready?
Mr. Peru, can you help out with that one?
That broke up a little bit. Can you repeat that again?
He was asking when we expect the plexiglass to be ready.
Today when I talked to Mr. Weissong, he would have to order everything. And then he didn't give me a timeline, to be honest with you. He just told me that he'd still have to order everything if he was the one that was awarded the one for the plexiglass and the windows. Because he said he would rather go with window because it is safer because of the breakage and stuff, and that it doesn't scratch as much. So if he's putting in his bid, he put plexiglass, but he would recommend glass because it's just about the same cost. But he did not give me a timeline on when they would be installed. I think a lot of that is once if he is the one awarded that, then we will be able to have a timeline.
I would suggest talking to others, although I appreciate the local businesses first, but I would appreciate talking to others to have a plan B and assess the viability of one versus the other.
Yeah, and I think Miss Varela does have more quotes, sir. It's just that today I was just visiting with Mr. Staley from Weissong. He's the one I was visiting with today, but she has some other bids in also.
I have a couple of other companies that we're looking at as well for that.
Okay, and just to touch on what Gabe brought on, I have some concerns about having teachers, the 16 teachers and the 3 educational assistants go through a process where they may be asked to come to work when they feel it's at risk to them. And I appreciate that we have an obligation to our students as well as to the district. But I just want to voice my concerns that if somebody feels that they aren't, that they feel too exposed to come back to work, I'm not sure that we should be the ones to tell them that, no, we feel you have to come to work. So I just wanted to express that part.
And Mr. Guadiana, we are going to need multiple teachers for the remote learning the way that we are looking at doing
Absolutely.
it. So
That's what I thought too.
Yeah,
That's what I
okay.
thought too. It seems like that would fit in for that need.
Yes. That's why we just now need to look at, shifting students so that we can make this work, but we know that it's doable.
That's good. Thank you.
There's a couple of other things that I know that the governor said that open schools by the 8th, but also at the same time, she turned right around and said that we also need to provide safety for our teachers and our students. So that comes into play there. The other thing is that in our union contract, it also says that we have to provide a safe environment for our employees that belong to the union. So that needs to be checked in with the union.
I have another question for Joyce or for Sandra. So if we went to the hybrid model, and maybe I should have reviewed, the plan that you provided on the hybrid model again, but if we go to a hybrid model, does that mean that we would effectively cut our instruction time by half if kids are only going to school twice a week?
Right. So Mr. Hogan, so what it would look like at the elementary would be that students would come to school Monday and Tuesday. Group A would come Monday, Tuesday at all schools, and Group B would come Wednesday and Thursday. So what it would look like at the elementary on the non-school days, which would be the remote days, that's when they're going to be doing their PE, their music, their art, their bilingual, and possibly even some of their tutoring with the interventionist. At the middle school, what it would be is they would do on the remote day, they would do some of their, at the elementary, they would also do their computerized programs on the remote day. At the middle school, they would do some of their computerized programs on the remote day, and then assignments that the teachers would give them on the days that they are here, and it would be similar at the high school.
So
Just
then,
like
yes,
teachers get homework. So usually, like say today, Monday, I come to school, my teachers give me homework. So rather than having to complete all that in the evening, I would do it on my remote days.
so yes, they would get less instruction time than what they're getting now being online.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
so Gabriel, it's kind of like what we're doing now. So we have, at the high school anyway, we have periods 1 through 4 on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And then on Monday and Wednesday afternoons, we have periods 5 through 7. So what will happen is now Group A will go Monday, Tuesday. They'll get their 2 days of instruction. And then Wednesday, Thursday, they'll be doing their packets. And then if they have trouble, then they can get online again in the afternoons with the teacher for support.
And
So
if
it's
you're
kind of
having-
like what we're doing now, except now we're seeing them face to face.
And it wouldn't be less
So
hours.
what,
Actually, be a little bit more.
so what day are they gonna sanitize the school?
They're sanitizing the school in the evenings after everyone leaves and in between class periods at the high school.
So
Yeah,
that
it seems
means
like that would make sense to do it in between.
Yeah, so
classes.
each teacher and the staff will have their own disinfectant kit, and they'll use that to help disinfect during passing periods.
I
As will
think
all
we-
teachers.
I think we need to check with the teachers union to see if it is okay for those teachers to be people that sanitize. The other thing is that kind of falls in the same thing as our custodians, that they can't clean so many feet away from the building. If the janitor goes out and cleans so many feet away from the building, that is in violation of our union contract. And then the union comes back in and says that they shouldn't be out there. So we need to make sure that we're in line with what the union says for those teachers to do.
Well, this is kind of late in the game to find out these restrictions, and should have been part of the planning all along, especially when it looks at cleaning the classrooms, when it's necessary by the teachers. And certainly the playgrounds had been something we had talked about too. So I appreciate you bring that up, but I'm disappointed that that's not been factored in until this late in the process. The other part too is that with what you mentioned in terms of the students will get all the periods when they're in class on one day as well as the second day, and then the next days are the ones that they do online. But now going back to that, that's students get basically 12 hours of classroom instruction when they're they're in class. It seems like 6 hours one day and then 6 hours the next day, or somewhere along that. And so now it makes the people that are going to be staying at home back down to 4 hours, and then have a little bit less than what they would have if they would have come to school. Just want to point that out and recognize that we're going to be giving those that choose to stay home lesser quality of instruction than those that choose to come in.
Okay,
I would
Mr.
ask,
Mendoza? Go ahead.
I would ask, if there's room to negotiate with the teachers union. I mean, regardless of whether it's allowed for or not, it seems to me like it's the right thing to do to sanitize between periods. So, and
Yeah,
you think
I
that
just don't
considering
don't want to get in trouble with the union.
yeah, I mean, considering the situation, it seemed like there
Yeah.
would be some sort of
I agree
reprieve of
with
that
you,
rule.
but sometimes it's kind of hard.
But the point is, why wasn't the union involved in the planning process to begin with?
Mr. Guardiana, let me talk about I spent a couple of hours with the union this week and last week. They didn't mention a problem with the sanitizing. As a matter of fact, Aneta Costa and company, they're gonna be ready with a video to show you, and it'll also show the example of the elementary teachers sanitizing the desk in whenever they're going to have lunch or whatever. The only thing that the union is pressing on us is they want their members to get their shot, and that's what they're coming from. Okay, but as far as cooperation, we have total cooperation from our union, from the teachers. Okay, and I've heard nothing, Mr. Sepulveda, from the union with the custodians. Okay, on that, and then to answer, we're giving the go ahead for our two principals, Mr. At the junior high, okay, Avalos, and then Ms. Martinez, to go ahead and start the process of hiring a replacement here. And if our gentleman were to recover and be ready, he's guaranteed a position, not necessarily the same one, but to come back. So we're working with that. And Maggie Yeager, who's the representative on this, has been working real well with us. Okay, so I personally have not had any problems with what we're trying to do, and they are being involved. Okay, so that I can tell you. Any other questions, anybody on that? Okay, Mr. Sepulveda, please.
Okay, let's go to item B.
Okay, on item B, we have graduation committee presentation. Ms. Montoya and Ms. Peru, please proceed. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, members of the community, we have been working on developing different options for graduation this year. We do have a committee put together that includes myself, Mrs. Montoya, Mr. Pena, who is the counselor at the high school, Mrs. Jager, and Ms. Tovar, who are the senior class sponsors, as well as senior parents. And of course, I am also a senior parent. We have also included the senior class officers, who are Toya Ortiz, Dino Peru, and Julene Jager. And we've been meeting almost weekly on talking about things to have to do with graduation and with their senior year. We did send out a parent input form because we do certainly want to hear from the parents of the seniors on what they're looking at. And we did have almost a 50% response rate for that input form. The majority of those parents would obviously love to see a traditional graduation. Of course, you know, that is certainly remains to be seen if we can do that. The other option that they have overwhelmingly expressed is holding graduation on the football field. I do know that there are some concerns with holding it on the football field, since we did just spend a lot of money updating that, and we need to make sure that no damage occurs. So at this time, I did email the board members kind of an overview of the different options of graduation that we've talked about, and I'll briefly discuss those so that the community is aware of what we're looking at. Obviously, our most ideal situation would be to hold a traditional graduation like we normally do, in the gym with family and friends attending. That, of course, would only occur if restrictions are lifted, and you know, I'm not super hopeful that that will happen, but we do want to plan for in case it does. There is one change to that traditional graduation that we are requesting, and that is we would like to give the seniors the option of who hands them their diploma within a confined group of people that they can choose from. It would be people that already participate in graduation, such as the Cobre High School teachers, district administration, and district board members. We feel that this is a great way for those students to be able to recognize teachers, administrators, or board members that make a difference in their lives and in their education. And so, of course, that would be planned well in advance. It would not disrupt how graduation runs in any way. We would make sure that it ran seamlessly. But we do feel that's one way that students can take that opportunity to recognize those people that make a difference in their education. Now, if a student chooses not to choose one of those individuals, or if their choice may not be available at the time, of course, the board president would still be the one handing them their diploma. Again, we're not super hopeful that that will take place this year with COVID. So we have different levels of different graduations that we are currently planning as well. And so depending upon the restrictions in place, we are looking at if indoor graduations are allowed. We would like to hold it in the gym. Depending upon what restrictions those are, it could be the students sitting on the gym floor 6 feet apart, being able to come up and get their diplomas. And as far as spectators, that would most likely be limited. Depending upon the restrictions, those families would sit in pods 6 feet apart in the bleachers, but be able to attend. If that is not an option, but indoor graduations are still allowed, we would maybe sit the student with their family. And as the parents and families come into graduation, they would be handed basically a packet with what they would need, their diploma and everything. And as that happens, you know, the families would present the diplomas to the students. If graduations are not allowed indoors, of course, we would certainly move those options outdoors. We would like to look at the football field, but again, we do know that there's concerns about damaging the football field. So we have looked at different options to protect the field. We've looked at rubber mats, we've looked at plywood, limiting the kind of footwear that would be allowed to be worn. And then, you know, it would just depend if the students were allowed to come up and get their diplomas. Again, they would be sat 6 feet apart on the protected area. Families would be sat in the bleachers 6 feet apart, that kind of thing. If they are, again, not allowed to come up and get their diplomas, we've looked at options of either having the families bring blankets and they can sit on the football field in that way. Or we've also talked about being able to move that to the front of the building. So if we need to put the pods in the lower parking lot, we can certainly do that and allow the students to sit 6 feet apart on the lawn in the front. Or again, if they need to sit with their families and have their families present their diplomas, we can certainly do that. I have seen a version of that. My niece graduated last year in Colorado, and they did use that version of graduation at her school where the families sat together in pods and the families presented their diplomas. It was very nice. It was well handled. And it's nice because, you know, your graduation pictures with your family. And so we would have a photographer that would go around to the different pods to take the graduation pictures. You know, there's a lot of different options. We are developing all of these because, like I said, we don't know what the restrictions are going to be in May. So, you know, we are developing all the different options. Of course, our last resort would be a drive-through ceremony like we had last year if that is necessary. We will live stream whatever option we do go with, whatever we are able to do. We will be live streaming it. We are in the process of purchasing a portable antenna system so that the connectivity issue that we had last year would not occur. We would be on an antenna based out of the school, and so it would be that kind of connection. So all of them will be live streamed. We will, of course, work with local law enforcement to get the assistance to make sure that only the people that are supposed to be attending graduation are there, whatever that may look like in May. But we are certainly developing all sorts of different options for graduation to make this as nice a graduation as we possibly can. And as far as how many people would be allowed to attend with the graduate, that of course would be determined by current restrictions. So we do have several members of the graduation committee on the meeting today. I know that Toya and Dino are on, Ms. Montoya's on, I know Mr. Pena's on. And so if you have any questions for any of us, we'd be happy to answer them.
This is Gabe. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So is there any evidence or any reason to think that we would do damage to the football field by more damage to the football field versus playing a football game on it that would cause damage to it? I mean,
Yes.
that's
Yes,
where
sir.
that's where graduation ceremony traditionally used to occur. And the only reason, to my recollection, that it was brought indoors was because that it would rain occasionally in May. And so everybody would have to run indoors and we'd have to finish the ceremony in there. But traditionally, I bet everybody on this meeting that went to Cobre probably had their graduation ceremony on the football field.
Yes, sir. And I do know that is why the committee, the parents have strongly requested that. I know the concern with the football field right now is, since it is turf, putting chairs on the football field, having high heels walk on the football field, that does puncture the material, and that cannot be repaired. And so I know that is a huge concern. I do know that, the football players use their cleats and all that happens. I understand, sir. I know that there's strong concern with damaging the field. And so I just tried to provide options where we could minimize that.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned what I was going to say, football, all the football players wear football cleats. So
Yes, sir.
similar to high heels, I guess.
Yeah,
We'll have the football players wear heels.
Only thing now is that all the football players are going to have to wear turf shoes, and that is something that our AD needs to get to those folks that are going to come and play at Cobre, that they need to have turf shoes to play on it.
Yes, sir. That has been something that has been communicated with other schools as they're coming to our school. Yes, sir.
And along those lines, you mentioned looking at alternatives for, or at least some criteria for shoes that are going to be used down there. And certainly that would maybe take out high heels, but maybe something a little less high and a little bit more spread out would work as well. In addition, the chairs could be fitted with some kind of thing that helps distribute the weight there. I'd really like to see the use of that field come into play after so much of an investment and so much of a time of it just sitting there. Also, the outdoor air is the preferable environment for such gatherings. And I would hope we can become very resourceful to mitigate the damage that could be caused by the stands and by everything else for the platforms. But that should be considered, and just not look at chairs because they have the pointed base on that. See if we can put something on there that kind of distributes that. We're at a point where it will not affect the stadium, the field.
Yes, sir.
Also, how many are we anticipating will graduate this year?
We have 63 seniors, sir.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. It's a small class.
Yeah, it is. So I hope we're able to do that. But thank for your committee for all the work that they're doing. Hopefully we'll get it there, either one.
Yes, sir. And I did see there was a chat from Victor involving the technology department in the committee. And as soon as we have more of a direction which way we are going, we will absolutely include them in that, because yes, they are a huge part of graduation as well.
Okay. Thank you, Maureen.
Yes, sir.
Frank Cordova, I got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I would have liked to have seen was possibly a board member being on this committee.
Sure.
For Mr. Holguin said for how long we've had graduations outdoors, and for the same amount of time, either the board president or the board members give out the diplomas. Now, last year, when the graduation was planned, the board members were not included at all, not even for the graduation. So the fact that you're coming to us now in a report saying that you want other options to deliver the diplomas is kind of a kick in the butt for the board members. And I wish that you would have had some input. If not a board member on the committee, at least contact the board president and say, this is what we are thinking. What are your thoughts, or what are the thoughts of the board?
Yes, sir, I understand, and I do apologize for that. This has been an internal discussion for some time, and yes, sir, I understand your concern, and we would certainly love to have a board member on our committee. You know, and it's no disrespect to the board in any way asking for this to happen. It is not. It is just another way for us to recognize what different individuals do for the students as far as their education. It is meant, there's no disrespect meant for that as well, sir. And I apologize that you feel that way, but we will certainly, we will certainly explore that.
And I'd like to comment to that effect as well. I appreciate that we did have a special place to be put at the board, at the ceremony, and we were aligned and we were present and our presence was seen. And so the rest of it was, I consider, trivial. I don't think we would have been wise for us to be walking back and forth and going to distribute the diplomas. I especially like the idea now that you're considering other people give the diploma. Certainly, if I would have had a chance to, when I graduated, to have one of my favorite teachers give me the diploma, I would have found that to be very special. And I encourage you to continue to go to that direction. It is about the kids, and it is about what makes their time worthwhile. And so I think the idea of having a board member on the committee is a good idea, but the rest of what you're going forward towards, I absolutely support.
Thank you, sir. And last year's graduation, we were just happy to be able to do anything, and we did try to give you all, a location to where you would be able to see what was going on, and it was very limited what we could do last year, and so that is why we're trying to develop so many different options this year, so that we are prepared and we have the different options ready to go with whichever direction we can proceed and give our seniors as good a graduation as we possibly can. I think the graduation that we provided last year under the circumstances was the best that we could do. We put a lot of effort into it. Yes, it was kind of last minute because every time we planned something, we were told that we couldn't do that because of restrictions. And so, we did the best that we could last year. We certainly always hope that we could do better, but we do try to do the best that we can.
Well, the banners and the parade and the setup was, I thought, very well done, and I still very much appreciate what you did.
Thank you. And the banners will continue this year. We're ordering them earlier this year. We will be looking at yard signs. We have already implemented and adopted a senior program utilizing our staff. Our staff adopted our seniors this year. And so that is we are already going with that. The seniors have been assigned to the staff, and we will be providing hopefully something special for those seniors from now until they graduate. And we are trying to do as much as we can for the seniors. We have a lot of ideas. We just have to see what restrictions allow us to.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Mr. Mendoza?
sir.
At this time, we'll go to public input. And Victor?
Hello, Mr. President.
You there, Victor?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
This time, anything from the public?
Oh, we have a whole bunch, sir. I'll start off with our YouTube stream. This is going back to the very start of the meeting, whenever they were discussing on the testing and whatnot. You had a Steven Gonzalez respond. Where did that info come from? I would like to check to see if that is a true statement regarding the second vaccine being out being put out 6 weeks or more. Bethany Zamora, what are the consequences for teachers that are not willing to come back into the school buildings at the time of our hybrid implementation? Yet Arthur Quintana, I understand that physical health is important, but what about our kids' mental health? Stevie Dominguez, she did mention that it's HIPAA, the only way that we can consent to release their health information. We cannot just conduct research. And then a Cobre Indian, safety first. As of now, kids under 16 can't get the shot. Kids have family members who are at risk. They may not experience symptoms, but will spread. Serena Murillo, teachers are concerned about our students' mental health as well. There are resources in the community parents can reach out to help. Arthur Quintana, who is in charge of getting the air quality measurements in order? I've been hearing about this for some time now. Bethany Zamora, I love my students and desperately would love to see them in person. However, there are only a little over 3 months left in this school year. Does it make sense to open at this time? And then there was another one that someone said, I don't know. And Cobre Indian, no, it doesn't make sense. Finish off the year as is. Stephen Gonzalez, why are their questions barely being answered and communicated to the general public? This has been going on for some time now. As Art said, the board meetings have been the same, no transparency. Arthur Quintana, why is Silver starting their hybrid and also doing pods? What are they doing to get going? They are our neighboring school. Ana Treviso, as far as the purifiers, what's the guarantee our kids won't get sick? Have they been tested, or did the 2 people who decided to change their minds get any statistics? Cobre Indian, seems like schools aren't prepared. By the time everything gets in place, there will be 2 months left for school. Arthur Quintana, we have known about the conditions of the school for some time now and continue to get the runaround. It is talk and no action. Stephen Gonzalez, in the process, it's February. You still need to order. How can this be? Arthur Quintana, what is the maintenance and cost for the purifiers? Stephen Gonzalez, this is unbelievable, totally unacceptable. You had Juan Dominguez. It seems to me that one of your administrators just seems to not know how to do his job. I've been following every meeting, and this administrator does not have control of his position or staff. Stephen Gonzalez, Mr. Mendoza, can you please hold someone responsible for this? This is not okay. No matter how you look at it, Cobre is not ready. Many have sat on this for too long. Stephen Gonzalez continued, or hold Mr. Mendoza accountable. Which is it? What an embarrassment. We had a Marciela Corral. I honestly think this is not safe at all. Juan Dominguez, it's always a contractor's fault. We need to take ownership of this lack of supervision. Cobre Superintendent should follow up on what this Peru even does to the better the school district. Juan Dominguez, Cobre is not ready for hybrid. And Arthur Quintana, were teachers involved in this model? And if not, why? And then Maricela Corral, I'm very scared for my siblings of catching this virus. This virus is a serious thing. And then you got another Juan Dominguez. Cobre teachers are handpicked on who can be coached to participate in discussions. If anyone challenges administration, they fear retaliation for speaking of their opinions or safety. That's everything on the YouTube.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
And
Move us to administration, Mr. Mendoza.
I did forward emails to Mr. Mendoza from the support account. There are quite a bit in there. I'm
So
not
is
sure
there a plan?
I'm not sure if you want me to read those as well, or.
I would say absolutely. If this is a public meeting, all the comments that are presented there should be presented now. Otherwise, we're
Okay.
circumventing the Open Meetings Act.
This one should have been in reference to our agenda. At the end, for the public input, that's where it's open.
So you want me to hold off until then, sir?
Yes.
That'd be-
Okay.
Unless it was addressed to the agenda.
It's just to the board meeting. So, you
Okay.
know, it's just different things coming in.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I've always been concerned that we have all these comments that come up on the YouTube channel and whatnot, and it seems like we just sort of gloss over them and we don't provide any responses to those. I think it's our responsibility as a board to respond to any public input. You know, I'm not sure why we aren't.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hogan, I understand that. I do read whatever messages do come across the YouTube. The last couple meetings, there really hasn't been any input at all. Like, we have all those recorded as well.
But Gabe's point is our silence, administration as well as the board's silence to concerns that have been raised by the community. And I absolutely agree with Gabe. It is our responsibility to address their concerns. And if they're diligent enough to pay attention to the meeting and sign on, and if we continue to gloss over them, then their participation will go back to where it was before. I really like the fact that more people now are listening to what's going on, whether there's critiques or whether there's compliments. Either way, the transparency, I agree, is very lacking on our part. And if we continue to just say, okay, I'll consider that, we'll take that under consideration, or just listen to it without a response, it dissuades people from participating. And the reason the board is elected is to reflect the community's concerns and respond to the community's concerns. And the superintendent is empowered to address those concerns as well and put what it feels as a justification or incorporate the recommendations that are brought forth. So I would think that it would be more effective from a school board and administration point of view to respond to them, knowing that many times participants in this kind of a forum are some that have something that they want to complain about. And there's a lot of people that don't have something that they want to complain about that aren't being heard. But nevertheless, I listen to these complaints. I hear them to be very valid. And I would hope that we would not discount them because there isn't an assessment as to are this just a limited few people and or is this a few people that have made a number of complaints. When I first came on the school board, there was a complaint of the restrooms being really in terrible condition with feces on the walls and different other things. And the board did nothing about that. And we had, as a matter of fact, the person making the allegations subject to a lot of actions that prohibited her from coming on to school. And the newspaper came in and followed up on her observations and found them to be valid. And the school board did not do anything in terms of responding to those particular complaints. I'm sad to see that we're still in that boat now.
Yeah, I would just add to that I feel like we're, you know, I remember when I started on the board, we had very little public input. Nobody would come to the meetings, and there was always comments made to that. And, you know, now that we're virtual and we're, you know, we're getting these comments via the YouTube stream, people are more comfortable in that method of delivery. I feel like, you know, we're going to discourage them if we don't respond to some of these. We're going to discourage them from participating in our meeting, which is a public meeting, and it's important to hear out our public and our parents. And so I think that we should respond.
Well, I think that they do respond, and I think that Mr. Mendoza directs those questions like Victor said. that those things are recorded. Mr. Mendoza listens to them, and the majority of those things get answered, maybe not by Mr. Mendoza, but they get answered by whoever it is directed to.
I would beg
And
to differ.
sometimes those people that, like right now, that came on and said stuff, they don't leave a phone number, they don't leave an address that they can get back to.
Sure,
And
you know,
us as a
just
board,
to-
we don't know all these answers.
And to speak just as an administration, you know, I'm speaking for a lot of us administrators. We do address the issues. You know, when they do come to us, we address the issues. And if we don't have the answer, we go look for it. But we have addressed the issues in the past. We've always, when the comments get made or when questions were brought up, we always come back and address it. You know, we make sure that we don't address it just with email. A lot of times we make personal phone calls to make sure that they are on the same page that we are, or we're on the same page that they are. So we're not looking at two different things. So we have addressed the issues in the past, you know, so I think, you know, we will address these also.
I would beg to differ. Certainly the observations of we're still having to order stuff. We're not ready yet, and we've been doing this for so long. Involvement of teachers and different other things. I think those are prevalent, and accountability. We've not, you know, accountability is a big one, and certainly we can't talk about personnel performance to a degree that it's available to be talked about in public session. But we haven't demonstrated accountability at any time that I know of. And I find that very disappointing. And I find that we're having some discussion that has been brought up months ago about readiness in terms of the facility, the ventilation, a number of different things. And I'm glad to hear Frank bring them up. But, you know, these things have been talked about since September, probably even before that. And we're still at ground zero.
Well, and I think sometimes, Mr. Nguyen, we're on
Every
ground
time
zero.
that we get going on something, for example, those R13 filters, okay, we had a problem that our system will not run them because we're going to burn motors. So we've been looking for a way or another thing that'll meet the state specs. And now they're ordered. Like I told you a while ago, I have a friend in Chaparral that has ordered them 2 months ago, because every time we get going on something, either the PED or the CDC or somebody changes things on us, and here we go again. If we order stuff, we're going to end up with stuff sitting in our boneyard because we can't use it because it doesn't meet state specs. Okay, that is one of the things that it seems like we're behind the 8 ball all the time, because they keep changing things on us. And as far as the CDC, I just heard a couple of days ago that they were talking about school reentry, and now they said that the CDC, and this was on national news, that the CDC is going to come up with some new reentry guidelines. So as soon as we get going here, CDC is going to change something, and there we go again, the same stuff.
And we can say, there we go again, because that's been the argument since March. Yet some schools have found the capability of opening up. And we talk
because they're not
about,
meeting the state specs. I guarantee you that they are not. And those that want to do it will not open because they got to meet the state specs.
And yet
Albuquerque, superintendent in Albuquerque said, we are not opening. Superintendent in Las Cruces said, we are not opening.
Mr. Sepulveda, if I can just offer clarification on the additional clarification on the filtration system. A memo came out January 27th from the PED from Deputy Secretary Delgado with the final specifications on the air filtration systems. Just so I know that there's a concern about the sound. The maximum sound needs to be less than 70 decibels at high speed. So the equipment that they are recommending, they did a state contracting
agreement, which, as you know, procurement takes about 6 weeks when they're doing statewide pricing. And so they've given us 7 vendors to choose from with the specifications that they have decided will meet the inspection level, that when the fire marshal inspector comes in, that these machines, so that was part of the reasoning that Mr. Peru and I and Mr. Mendoza and Jackie, our procurement, we discussed back and forth as to which way we should go, if we should still go with the in whatever filters, or if we should get the portable units, which the state recommended. I just wanted to offer additional clarification on that, and just state that is hardly the case. The other thing is that, as you know, you approved a bar for the air filtration funding in the last board meeting, which was in January. So that funding got approved also on January 27th when the bar got approved, and also the specifications came out for the final specifications for the air filtration. So I just wanted to offer additional clarification, because I know there's concern as to why portable units versus in the vent units versus MERV 13 versus MERV less than 13, and so on and so on. And now it's like minimum airflow of 400 to 1000 CFM and so forth and so forth. And they said that the one thing that was going to happen if we didn't meet the specifications is that we would fail the inspection anyway. So Gabriel, I know that you have your hand up. You're on mute.
So I just read a comment on the YouTube stream, and it was addressing that, it was from Cobre Consolidated School District, and saying that everybody wants to have their responses heard. Please email all your contact info to support@Cobre K-12 NMUS, and it will get sent to you with the response form. I would just say that for the sake of transparency, I would appreciate seeing those responses as well. I would like to see those responses. Those concerns and comments made in the chats are to the board and the administration as well. And I would like to, again, see those responses as well for the sake of transparency.
I absolutely agree.
I also agree, but when they send it, we're gonna have to put out there that if they want a response, give their phone number or their mailing address so that we can send it.
That's what was
Mr.
done,
Mendoza?
correct, Gabe? Now they received that information that they can, who to send it to and how, and contact information?
Yeah, I don't know if Victor put it up or somebody, but Cobre Consolidated School District put up a post that said, if you want your responses heard, email them to this email address, and it will get sent to who you need a response from.
That should become part of our.
We're gonna edit that right now. We're gonna edit that right now, Mr. Holguin and Guadiana, adding that we're gonna send those over to the board.
Appreciate that. And maybe we can put that as part of their meeting announcement, that if they are going to submit concerns and want a response, to include that information.
And I think somehow also that those responses should be posted on some public place for everybody to see the answer, because it's not just the person asking. I think other people are interested as well. So everybody ought to be able to read those responses.
Can those responses be put on our webpage or something? And they, Maureen?
Yes, sir. Mr. President,
And yes,
we can post those onto the website if needed, we can create a whole section on there under the Board of Education for responses like that.
And we can also
Okay.
post them to the Facebook page as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think that'd be a great step for transparency. I appreciate that.
Mr. Mendoza. Administration. You're muted, sir.
Okay, this is demonstration of competency policy revision. Mr. Carrillo and Mr. Edward Peña, please, are you on?
Mr. President, members of the board, PD had set new guidance on allowing districts to expand the current local demonstration of competencies, giving seniors more latitude to demonstrate competency. And Mr. Peña is here to talk a little bit more about that. Mr. Peña?
Good evening, everyone. The New Mexico Public Education Department issued what is known as a hold constant for the graduation requirements for the class of 2021. And due to the present circumstances, students in the class of 2021 would have been the first class to take the ESSA required exams, which would be the SAT and the New Mexico ASR. Due to the closure circumstances, they were not able to test last year. Due to this, the New Mexico Public Education Department has opened options for meeting the testing competence and requirements. We're still using the demonstration of competency requirements issued by the New Mexico Public Education Department, and we have reviewed all student records to determine where they meet competency. Okay, at this time, the New Mexico Public Education Department has allowed expansion of the local demonstration of competencies, which we already have in place. There's two main points for expansion. The first is the use of the present EOCs in their previous and now in what is known as a present form. The local demonstration of competency can now include EOCs in what is known as a modified form. What this basically means is that I now own, or Cobre High School now owns the EOCs. EOCs are end of course exams for core subject areas. Since we now own them, we can adopt them into our local demonstration of competency and use those in their modified form. They cannot be given in their original form. They have to be modified so that they are not the same from district to district. So that's the first point. Passing scores can be used as a competency for graduation in that tested area. And the testing areas would be reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. The second addition is the use of previous PARCC assessments. The students were used to take the PARCC exam, and some of them may have taken a PARCC exam in an area that might have been able to be used as competency during their 9th or 10th grade year. Okay, usually those would not have been allowed since the competency begins usually at their 11th grade year. So therefore, they are allowing the expansion of the use of PARCC scores if applicable. If the student had a passing score of 3 or higher during their 9th and 10th grade year, which would primarily be ELA and math, okay? Now, in addition to these, students can meet demonstration of competency by their junior year. However, effective as of December 1st, 2020, students that have not met competency may demonstrate in a variety of forms, and that's in the list of menu that we have available to students. Some of these forms include examples of the local demonstration of competencies, which include portfolios, which is what we presently use now in our local demonstration of competency, but it was expanded to project-based learning, capstones, which we are not a member of the capstone project, so we would not be able to use those, oral presentations, which we would not be able to use since we do not have guidelines for oral presentations, and those are part of the capstones. But the final one, college admission letters. If a student was admitted to college, they could meet their competency that way. So in lieu of all those, in addition to all those, the Public Education Department has recently allowed LEAs to use the completion of course requirements in the subject areas as competency for the class of 2021. And that would only be for the class of 2021 at this time. So basically what that's saying is if the student passes their English 11 or English 12, they therefore would meet competency for reading and writing. If they passed the course Algebra 1 or above, they would then meet competency in math. And the same thing in history, which would be US history, government economics, world history, New Mexico history, and then also the same thing for science, which would be just about any form of the science that we have available to our students. So those are the three main points that have changed. The first two would require the addition into the local demonstration of competency, which would be the inclusion of EOCs and the use of PARCC scores. And the final one is the option that we are giving our students for the class of 2021 only at this time.
I have a comment. I'm kind of taken aback that they would allow each district to come up with their own criteria. But as it pertains to us, as a school board, we certainly should be kept either participate in or be kept abreast on what criteria it is we're going to establish for determining graduation. So I would hope that we go forward at this point in an inclusionary fashion, or at least reporting what the options were, why they were decided on, and what the impact of that will be.
And Mr. Guadiana, we do have a local demonstration of competency that we've had for over, I believe it's 10 or 12 years in our district policy. So that has always been in existence. It's the expansion of these two new points that could be added to the local demonstration of competency.
And that's what I would think our participation would be required in.
Then that's the reason why we come to you today, so that you can approve those expansions to the local demonstration of competency, which may be utilized next year if the PED so decides to do.
So we didn't receive anything in the packet to review this, and we have very little of an understanding to be able to give it just a rubber stamp approval maybe at this point, but we don't have anything substantive to take a look at.
Has this, or is this going to be added to our new policy manual that is coming up, or what? Where are we with this?
This has been presented to you for approval, and then it would be added to the local demonstration of competency that's already in place. What I just explained is that they made this for this year, and what even today, what they talked about today was that students who are passing core content areas that would even be their demonstration of competency. Why we came to you for because we did not have those or today's passing of the course, but we did have the other two that we talked about, the banked scores and the EOCs, and we wanted that to be part of it in case they expand it for next year. That's all we have, that we can use banked assessments and end of year EOCs, end of year assessments that would be added to the local demonstration of competency that we already have in place. That's all.
The PED has always had the contingency
How
of
is
using.
that going to affect those seniors this year?
It's going to help them. All students that pass the class will pass. Will be able to graduate if they meet all the other requirements. They have all their credits. That's why the PD made those adjustments, because of the situation in where we're at, because of the national emergency, COVID-19. They are working with districts to be able to expand the local demonstration of competency to include bank scores, to include end of year exams, and most recently today, to be able to use passing of core content classes. So yes, we want to help our students. That's why we're here, and hopefully even next year, if they approve for our juniors to continue in that pathway for next year.
Mr. President, may I make a comment, please? This comment is for Jose and Mr. Peña. You've heard two board members say they haven't even seen the information. If they want to make a judgment call on this, I recommend that you go ahead and send it to them. We can table it if the board approves, and then we can bring it right back in 5 or 8 days next week when they've read it, and they can ask some questions and be more comfortable, okay? So while I support your efforts, you and Edward, I think we need to kind of give them time to read it. And Mr. Guardiana and board members, I think these next 5 days, 6 days, and we'll get that to you first thing in the morning. You should be able to read, and then we'll come back at it next week. I'm sorry? It was not? It was supposed to be in their packet, but obviously some of you didn't get it.
No.
Okay, so let's make sure, Irene, if you're listening, we need to send that out to them tomorrow. And then Irene did put it in the packet, but some of you didn't get it.
So you're making a recommendation that we table this?
I didn't see a nod with Jose and Edward. What's your thing?
That's fine. You know, we have until the end of the year for our kids to be able to show demonstration of competency. We just wanted to get this sooner than later. That is fine, totally fine. I wasn't under the understanding that it wasn't part of the board packet.
No, it was, but for some reason, some board members didn't get it, okay?
And if I may, just for clarification, end of course exams have always been part of the demonstration of competency allowed by the public education department. The change is that now we own the exams and we can give them in a modified form until they no longer say we can use them. So we're following the guidance of the public education department. Okay, now as far as the PARCC scores, these have also been put in place previously, but since we did away with PARCC, those scores were only for the 11th and 12th grade. It was just the expansion of using any test that the student might have taken in the 9th or 10th grade. So these have always been in existence in the state plan and the state competency for graduation. They have always been in existence in our local demonstration of competency. It is just the expansion of these 2 points. The one that we discussed that happened today was the fact that the PED is now allowing that students use course completion, okay, as a demonstration of competency. So that would, the majority of these are not necessarily ours. It's the ability to be able to use them as per PED guidance.
And this would be for this year's seniors. What we are wanting to add to the demonstration of competency are those 2 points in case PED allows it for seniors next year. And we wouldn't have to come to the board again and add those 2.
And all that is all good and well, and it may be something we would adopt just upon reviewing it. But to say that we are capable of making a learned decision on this, I think doesn't follow through without having enough information to make that decision. And so I appreciate the request to table this and giving us that opportunity. and ensuring that we are able to make a proper decision on this.
Mr. Mendoza?
The administration recommends that we table this and bring it back next Monday at the meeting and allow all the people to have a chance to review and receive a copy of the proposed addition to the policy.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move. This is Gilbert.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second? Second?
I'll second. This is Gabe.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any other questions?
I think just a point of clarification, I didn't see this in the board packet. I know there was a question on whether the minutes were in the board packet or not, and those may have been, but I didn't see those. But I don't think that this conversation, there was any information in the packet, so.
And another clarification is that if we're going to send out board packets, they should be the same for every single board member?
I hope they were.
Well, if some received the minutes and some did not, then that's probably not the case.
I think these were in the minutes of from our last board meeting. Because this is the same agenda as that one. So they may have been in that other one. I didn't look back, so I can't tell you. Okay. Any other questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin.
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana.
Yes.
Mr. Gomez.
Yes.
Mr. Cordova.
I'll vote yes, but they were in my packet and I did get an email going to this also, but I'll vote yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. Moves us to, where are we?
Okay, item B under
Pods.
administration, reopen pods. Mr. Diaz, please. I know
Yes,
you
sir.
had
Thank you so much. So good evening, members of the board and everybody that's on this call. I know it's been some tough conversations today, and I understand where everybody's coming from, and I understand everybody's points of view. But today, what I will be presenting is a plan to get students going in pods, and I will also be explaining some of the implications on specific decisions that you guys are burdened to be making here within the next, I'm assuming, few board meetings. So the first thing that I wanted to go ahead and discuss was the guidelines. There's a few guidelines in your board packet that were adjusted, and I want to preface by saying there is a typo on the pod sizes. The pod sizes should say 4-1. Okay, so part of it does say 4-1 on limitations of gathering, but those things are obviously subject to change. Okay, and the few things that have changed as far as the guidelines that we have and we're presenting tonight is that we were suggesting that coaches need to be responsible and students need to be responsible for bringing their own mask. We will provide a mask if it's not available to them. So we do have masks, and all of those have been purchased. We've purchased about 500 masks to have in addition, just in case that is something that we needed to do. Also, facilities must be sanitized on a daily basis before and after use. The one thing that we did add right there is the addition to designated restrooms if the gym is going to be in use, and then that would be for emergency use only. Also, we've added that the air purifiers have been purchased. I misunderstood the ETA, so the ETA won't be with us on 215. They'll be to our state and our manufacturer here on 215. So The ETA here, I'm not exactly sure when they would actually physically be here. Like I said, the limitations on gathering is a 4-to-1. Again, we are saying Cobre coaches will have 4 pods total on the football field, 4 pods on the softball field, 4 pods in the gym. Allowable in the weight room for the pod at 25%. And then we did add as well that foggers would be used daily to sanitize. In addition to the weight room, what we have done and we have started the process of is eliminating unnecessary machinery, because we do understand that at some point those things do need to be sanitized. So the more that we have in the weight room, the more or the harder it is to sanitize. So we are trying to mitigate the amount of sanitation necessary in order to run a pod in the weight room safely, if we so choose to go that route. So some of the things that we've added, so Cobre must do in order to move forward is all coaches and staff tested. That is an ongoing thing. So we do give, coaches do give us the results and let us know, what they are, and that's ongoing. All the PPE has been ordered and delivered. We have that. So every coach has a kit. Every coach has DC7. They have gloves. They have paper towels. They have sanitizer. They have their the questionnaire, and they have a thermometer. So every kit that we have provided, all coaches have that as well. We do want to send out a new survey. It's been a little while since we were able to see how many kids wanted to participate. So we want to do that again in order to kind of get a better idea of how many kids want to participate. List of coaches participating included in your board pack. It is kind of a rundown of pods and who would be responsible for pods. And at this time, those are the coaches that have shown interest. And there's some that that's subject to change. Just with about anything and everything we've done, always subject to change. Let's see. What we do have is there is a release of liability and emergency contact form signed and returned. So we do have that in your packet. It's been similar to the one that we sent out for school reentry and acknowledgement of risk for those students that are coming into the schools in small groups at the moment. We have one. The wording is a little bit different for athletics. It is a draft. I've talked to the nurses, and I've asked them to review it to just make sure that there's language in there that is correct and factual data or factual information. One of the other things that I've also added as well is coaches training. And slow me down if I'm going fast, because I know that I tend to speak really quickly. So I want to do that. So that's another layer of security that I've added, because we've explained it, but I think we need to have an ongoing training, especially since things are constantly changing, things are constantly evolving. So I want to be able to train the staff that's going to be working with our kids in the right ways and proper way of mitigating the virus. Also, the coaches' do's and don'ts, everything pretty much has stayed the same there. One of the things that I want to add as well is that we are looking into moving into a more digital way of having forms. We're looking at what's called Family ID, where we can upload all our forms, all of our, what do you call them, the physicals. Coaches would be able to have access to all of their students and all the emergency contacts right at their fingertips using an app. So it would make having less paperwork. So less paperwork to be handed back and forth and carrying around. So we're looking into that as in the athletic department. And so, like I said, I feel we are in a better situation as far as we're ready to be able to bring kids back in pods. I understand that there's some things that could possibly be like the air purifiers would help mitigate, but we're not asking to do anything other than what we've already allowed other schools to do in our district, and that's bring kids in small groups. So we're asking the same situation, but just in athletic pods. We will present a short video this afternoon. I do have my Trey over here who helps me with all the tech stuff all the time. He's a great guy, great asset that we have. And so we have a short video that we would like to show you. It's kind of a little bit starts off from the student perspective as they're walking in. And so at this time, I think it's appropriate, if you guys are okay with that, that we present that to you. Yes, sir. I see a hand up, Mr. Cordova.
First of all, I want to thank you for all the work that you and your people have done. I do have a couple of concerns and a couple of questions at this time. So the gatherings are 4-1, not 9-1 at this time, right?
Correct. Like I said, that was a typo that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing is, these are just for conditioning purposes, not sports specific, right?
They can be. So we can have either or. So as far as the NMAA and their guidelines, they can be sport specific, or we can have them be conditioning. Now, what I mean by sport specific is that they can use equipment within that pod.
Okay. Well, that's a question that we are getting hit with. And as a board member, we don't know what to answer as to yes, they are, no, they're not. That's why I'm asking that one.
Yes, sir.
The other question that I had is, you've stated on there about the testing of all the coaches.
Yes, sir.
My understanding is that if you have a person that tests positive and they quarantine and they go through the whole thing, they are being advised not to test for 90 days because they will test positive.
Right.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's my understanding. So, okay, do we have some coaches that are going to fall into this situation if we go to pod?
I think we will. We will have.
And how are we going to handle that so that to protect our kids?
If a coach does come up positive with COVID, then we have to shut down that pod. It would be the same situation if a student came up positive. I understand. I think there is an understanding that mitigation doesn't mean that that risk is not going to be there. There's always going to be a risk. There's always going to be a risk that is going to be there. Whether we start today, whether we start next week, whether we start in August of next year, COVID isn't going anywhere. So we understand that there's always going to be a risk. And my job, as I see it, is to try to mitigate that risk as much as possible. So we're going to do everything that we can to be as safe as possible. We're going, there is repercussions for people that are not following the rules. Coaches can tell you that I was there almost just about every day, checking on pods, making sure that everybody's following the rules. So I completely understand. We have to have a plan, and this is our plan. Our plan may need some tweaking as we go, but the only way to really understand what tweaks we need to make and where they come up is when we start doing this. Things are going to appear that we may not understand or we may not be planning for, but I think this has to be something that we continue working on.
I understand. The other comment or question that I have is, okay, if you start pods, you cannot have pods in the gymnasium till after the purifiers come in, correct?
And that is entirely, like I said, we, as of right now, that is not like an NMAA regulation that we can't bring people into the gym unless we have purifiers, right? I think that's a condition of hybrid. So
I was understanding.
I think it would help. Yeah. So what I've asked was that we would start when we receive the purifiers. right? So in the packet that I gave you, the ETA or the goal date was February 15th, because I thought that that's when we would have them. So yes, we want to make sure that we have those. They
Okay.
would mitigate
In these pods and this information that you gave us, I did
Mhm.
not see any for the band. Did we have some in place for them?
For band.
Or band, yes, band members and band instructor.
Unfortunately, at this time, the state has come out with some new regulations on band and the preventative, and then preventing them from gathering at this moment. They can gather, they can't play instruments, they can't sing, they can't do certain things. Now, I don't know if that was an oversight, or I don't know what's going on with that, but I think they are in talks that may change. But as of right now, I apologize, my light came off. As of right now, the state and not the NMAA has made a regulation that we may have to reconsider what we're doing with band at this moment.
And would junior high band members be able to participate, since junior high kids can't participate in sports?
So that's twofold. We live in a little bit of a gray area when it comes to band, right? Because band can be considered academic. It depends on how it's being approached, right? And it also competes. So we have a little bit of a gray area that is not definitive, right? It depends on exactly what it is that they are going to be doing within that band. Now, middle school sports have not been officially terminated or canceled by NMAA or the state. That's going to be a local decision. The reason we have not included middle school at this point in the high school in pods was because the amount of interest that we've had and the amount of coaches to be able to fulfill the need for those kids. So if you notice in your packet, we had about I think 40 pods. That's a lot of pods. We don't have a lot of coach. You don't have enough coaches. Coaches have the same. They're putting themselves in. They have the same risk as a teacher might have, right? And they have to be okay with putting themselves at risk. Like I said, we are not eliminating 100% of risk. We all know that. But what we can do, and the only thing that we can do and control, is try to mitigate the risk. And I'm hoping that these plans are showing that that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Diaz, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said a while ago, sports specific.
Yes. So what I mean by
there is that, okay, we got a pod over here of kids that play only football.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a pod over here of kids that only play baseball.
Yes, sir.
Okay, some of those kids over here that play football also play baseball.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
they're on pod. This kids over here at football are on pod A, and now they go to play baseball. Now 2 or 3 of those kids on pod A are going to be together over here in baseball with pod B. So
let me just
they're
clarify
not being
that.
separated there.
So let me clarify. If you notice, most, I think all, there was a couple that we had put in there because kids were undecided. So we are not allowing kids to jump from pod to pod. I know in some districts and in some schools it's allowed, and it's allowed through the guidelines that if we have multi-sport athletes, that they can go from this pod of basketball and then they can join another pod of football, and then they can join another pod of track or baseball or whatever it is. That is allowable within the guidelines, but we choose not to do that because we understand that there is that risk. So we ask that that the students choose at the moment which pod that they would like to participate in. We also understand within our coaching family, that we are going to do things as far as conditioning that are going to help all sports, because we understand there's a need and there's a want, and we all want our athletes, we all want our kids, we all need them. But one thing that we can be sure of is that footwork and plyometrics and strength training and those type of things are all applicable in every sport. So if we do those things along with maybe, say Coach Acosta, he wants a pod of pitchers. So he can do all of these things that are going to help all these other pods and all these other sports and still be able to work out his pitchers. Right? But those kids do not jump from one pod to the next.
No, I'm not saying that they jump from one pod to the next. I'm saying that, say, Coach Acosta has his pod over here of pitchers, but those same pitchers play football. Now, over here, they're on a pod together. Now they come over to football, and they're in two different pods, which mixes up the kids.
That's exactly what I said. We're not doing that. It's allowable through the state, but we are not doing that.
So if Coach Acosta has a pod of pitchers, when they go over to play football, those same boys are going to be on a pod over here together, even though one of them is a lineman over here and he's a pitcher over here.
That's not how we're running the pods, but I understand what you're saying. That would change when the state allows for practices to happen, right? So once football happens, say football opens up and we have our pods that can now be, they'd have to be 22 or more, right? Because if you're running a football team, you'd have to have at least, 11 on one side and 11 on the other side of the ball to be able to participate. Now those kids would no longer be in pods. They would be in football season. You see what I mean? So they no longer are in those pods. Now that hasn't been determined. I mean, I think that's the second part of what I will be talking to you guys about today. But that has not been determined. So I think what we've done is we've made sure that we go above and beyond the standards that the state or the NMA has approved to make sure that we mitigate as much as possible. Like I said, there is always going to be an inherent risk that's never going to go away. There's going to be some risk involved. Now, I believe that that this has to be a decision a parent makes, right? We are not forcing. This is not forced. We are asking you, if you want to participate, you're signing this waiver that releases us a liability. You understand that there is a risk. You understand that your child can get COVID based on being around other people. You understand that your child can bring that home to your family, but that is a choice that a parent and whoever participate is making.
And then they also need to understand that if that kid tests positive, the football team's going to have to shut down.
Of course, and we are completely in compliance with that, and I would not have it any other way, So we as coaches are determined to make sure that they understand that if you are not being safe outside of our pod, that you're putting this season, you're putting your friends, you're putting your team at risk of contracting COVID and at risk of not playing. Because that would go in effect immediately.
One of the questions going to have to be asked to the parents. Okay, which one of you is willing to put your kid on a ventilator?
And I think that's one of those things that they understand. I think that's part of the understanding of risks that they are taking. And I think as parents, they should have that right to make that choice. I'm not saying that their choice is correct. I'm not saying that it's wrong. But I
guarantee you that that parent that wants that kid to play and that kid ends up with a virus, who is the first one they're going to come after? The school.
Mr. Diaz, I just want to say that I appreciate the mitigations that you're putting into place above and beyond what the state requirements are. And I would also say that, our kids are hanging out. They're going to the gyms in Silver that are open. They're hanging out with each other. They're going to Walmart. They're already doing it with or without us. So
yeah, and that's where I disagree. That some of these kids are all saying, "Well, I miss my friends, but go up there on now that it snowed ask the teachers how many kids were not in class, and I'll bet you found them up at Single Peak, Tubi.
Yeah,
And then they
that's
come
another
back and
thing
they
that
say,
I wanted
I
to
miss my
comment
friends.
on. And that's one of the things I wanted to comment on. When we don't have them, we cannot control what they do, right? Like
Exactly.
I know we
but
can.
when we
Exactly.
do
I know
have
we can.
them, we can make sure that they're wearing a mask. We can make sure that they're
But we can
gathering.
try to keep them safe.
Yeah, and
And our
that's what we're
teachers.
trying to do. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
And I
I'm
think
not
you're doing
disagreeing
that,
with any
Mr.
of it.
Diaz.
What's that?
I think you're doing that, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort that you're putting into trying to get our kids the mental well-being that they need.
Yeah, I understand the fears. I get it. I have them too. I think we all do. We all do. And I think Mr. Olguin had made a comment earlier about risk assessment. And I can speak from experience that when my own son, it's been very difficult to see. He's having a hard time, and he's not the same person. And it's because we have been strict. We have been. We understand there's a fear of contracting. There's a fear that he's bringing it home to us. But I also understand that his mental well-being is something that I'm willing to work with and try to give him an opportunity to work himself through, because his mental well-being is as important as his health. And at some point we have to look at those variables and weigh those options. And I think each family has to take into consideration their specific needs and what they need for their kids. Like I said, we're not forcing them. We just want to provide the same opportunities afforded to kids all around us, in Lordsburg, in Silver, in Deming, in Hot Springs, in Socorro, even Hatcher is not going in virtually hybrid, but they're still offering these types of opportunities. Even Las Cruces might be not going hybrid, but they're still offering these opportunities. Gadsden. So if you look at the entire Southwest, as of right now, we are the only ones that have not provided that same opportunity to our own children.
And Mr. Diaz, pods are not mandatory, right?
Pods are not mandatory. It is an opportunity. It is.
And there's also, and kids or parents of kids that want to do it are required to sign a waiver, correct? If they,
Yes, sir.
acknowledging the risk that they're accepting, correct?
Yes, sir. And we're, as coaches, we are even willing to say, okay, if we can't go indoors right now, at least give us an opportunity to have outdoors, and we can work a schedule to do that. So, Mr. Guadiana, you have a question?
Yes. I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate that the way that you send us the materials, and we can take a good look at that. It gives me a sense of a structure that you've developed and a thought process that you're conveying to us. Couple of things I would like to add is in the
Sure.
do's and don'ts that you have. I
Yes,
know
sir.
that it's in the policy that we talk about violations of that. I would think it would be a good time to reiterate those in this document to show that, okay, if you do this one time, this happens. If you do this, and that'd be both for coaches and for students.
Yes, sir. So in right above coaches must do's, there's failure to adhere. So if we look at the failure to adhere right above, you go a couple pages back, it says failure to adhere. All participants must adhere to the guidelines. For students, it's a warning. Second one's dismissal from practice for a day. The third time they don't do what's supposed to be is dismissal from practice for 30 days. For coaches, a little more stringent. Coaches are a warning. If we are monitoring our coaches, I do a good job of making sure that I'm there, that I see. So it's a warning. And then the next time is dismissal for a week, and the third time is dismissal indefinitely.
Okay, that's not in the guidelines. Is it in this document?
Yes, sir. It should be right above COVRES must do in order to have.
Oh, okay.
The only other thing, Mr. Diaz, is, if they do go to pods, let's alternate the pods, not have the same pods coming in the morning and the same pods coming in the afternoon. Let's alternate them so that they have a chance to, some of them be there in the morning, some of them be there at noon, some of them be there in the evening, so that they're not the same pods coming in every day in the morning or every day at noon or every day in the evening.
Yes, sir. We do have different start times and end time to try to mitigate so we staggered the times, and yeah, we can rotate those times as to when this happens. I know Mr. Olguini raised your hand.
Yes, Mr. Diaz, I have a question. So considering that everybody around the state is potentially going to start pods and probably start competing in sports, what are the requirements that a school has to have, that we have to be able to compete, if that's what we chose to do?
Okay, let me answer Mr. Gomez's, because that's the second part of what I was going to present to you. So, Mr. Gomez, you had your hand raised up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Diaz. I just want to tell you, I totally support what you're doing with this pods and stuff, and I totally agree with our kids. And COVID's not going away, and we need to figure out the best ways to keep our staff, our children safe, and try to get them back into school. I appreciate everything you're doing, and it is a risk, and there are choices involved, and it's something that we need to work with instead of hide from. And like I said, I have 11-year-old granddaughter that lives with us, and it's devastating with her. She played sports, she was in band, and I really think somehow or another making it safe as possible to try to get our kids back in school, making sure our staff and our support staff, everyone, that it is safe, but that we move forward with it. So I really appreciate the information that you gave. It's very thorough, and you have my full support on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So to answer your question, which was the second part, I think the video can wait. And that's okay. I'll just forward you guys the video if that's okay, just for time's sake. I'll just forward it to you guys so you have it.
Could you post it on the internet? That way the audience can see it too.
Yes, and now I'll have them work on that right now. So here is where we are. So as of yesterday, as of Monday, we had another meeting with the NMAA right after they met with their board. So they wanted some clarification on what it meant to be hybrid. So they came, the ultimate definition that they gave us was that the high school has to be 50% of the students twice a week at least. Okay, it could be more, but at least 50%. Now that being said, the new schedule came out as to when things start. So fall sports is starting February 22nd. Now, we cannot participate in any sports or any activities if the high school is not in hybrid. Okay, if the high school is not in hybrid, we cannot compete. We can do pods, we can do those types of things, but we cannot compete. Now, the implication that we have at this moment, and I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight because you can't. You have to have everything in place and you have to have more information. But the day that we say we're coming back hybrid, there is a 2-week period of time that we have to wait. And I think the period of time is to see if there's going to be any spikes in cases. So there's a 2-week wait in order for us to be able to compete. So say if we came back March 1st, we would not be able to compete until mid-March, the second week in March. So we would have to have 2 full weeks there. Yes, sir. I see your hand raised, Mr. Gomez, sorry.
I apologize, sir. Wrong button.
Okay. So that being said, we have fall sports that are coming up. Fall sports are beginning, practices begin February 22nd, and the games themselves, let me pull up my calendar, competitions would actually begin that, let's see here, Competitions would begin that Saturday, the 27th. Okay. There has been talk, and this is just talk, right? There has been talk that there was consideration of possibly coming back after the third 9 weeks, that we would look at that time. Okay, if we wait and nobody is in hybrid after March 22nd, then there's no way that fall sports will happen whatsoever. Fall sports, we would just cancel them at that point because there's no way we come back early enough. In order for us to have a season for fall sports, the target date for athletics has to be March 1st. Now, I'm not saying that we have to make these decisions, obviously, but I'm just giving you the information that I need to give you so you can make an informed decision. It would have to be March 1st. And we know that there's so many things that have to happen in order for that to happen. So March 1st would give us 2 weeks. We wouldn't play until spring break. That would give us 3 games, which would give us the opportunity to participate if we win in a state championship. We have to be part of that. Now, of course, that is what needs to happen in order for us to have a fall sports season. Now, if we don't do, if we're not there, if we're not there, and we can, and it might, and we may not be, which is completely understandable, then the next thing that we're looking at is winter sports. Winter sports begin March 22nd. We would have our first competition. Let me see here. The first competition would be the first week in April. Okay. But based on the rules that we have now, we would have to sit out the first 2 weeks. So we're looking at sitting out March 22nd, and then the first week, which would put us competing in the second week in April.
You mentioned winter sports.
Yes.
Specifically?
Specifically, winter sports would include at this time basketball. Wrestling is going to be considered a spring sport. But even then, wrestling practices would begin on March 22nd, along with softball and baseball.
What about football?
Football at this point would be completely done, and that would be considered a fall sport.
Okay.
So the fall sports that we are talking about are going to be volleyball, cross country, and football. Now, one thing that was profound to me, and I'm just sharing this because I think it's important for you to hear it, because it rang with me, being that I played football. One of those things that you can always play basketball. You can always go out and play softball. You can always go out and play baseball, but you will never, ever get another opportunity to put on pads for most of these kids. Now, I don't mean to say that to sway a decision, but just so you know that is what our kids are facing.
I've got a question, Mr. Diaz.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they're saying that if the high school doesn't go hybrid, the kids cannot play.
They cannot compete, correct.
Okay. That is, I think, illegal. And I think it is unfair to those kids that spend the time doing work on the computer, and then they tell them they cannot play. And then you turn right around, and these kids are registered kids in our district. They go to school. They not might be showing up at the high school, but they're doing work on the computer. They are in school. And then they turn right around and let these kids that are not registered as our kids, that are homeschooled, and they can go play. That is unfair to our kids that put the time in.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Sepulveda. I mean, I agree that if they're in school and we can provide an opportunity, that we let them. But these are not, I mean, these are state guidelines and NMA guidelines and regulations. You know, forwarding you the information. You know, I
Let me
agree.
tell you another thing. NMMA right now wants sports to open because they're not collecting any funds.
Hey, that also may be true. That also may be true. But you know, I can only present what I've been presented with. So,
But maybe those
I
are some
understand.
of the things that they need to hear.
And yeah, they probably do need to hear those things. But
I would
you
say
know,
from my perspective, it seems to me like it would be putting the cart before the horse. I mean, if you're saying that you can't have kids in the classroom, then why would you allow them to participate in sports? That's the message I hear. So I think that, you know, it makes sense to me.
yes. So the question I think where it's coming back
But
is
there,
those
but
kids
there
that
again,
decide to stay
but there again, right
virtual.
now, the teachers are already used to doing the hybrid thing. Kids are getting used to doing the hybrid thing. And then all of a sudden, here we go, changing the thing around. And you talk about our failure rate?
I think these are concerns that are very valid, Mr. President. But you know, the only thing that I can control, and I think we can control, is what we do and how we move forward. Those are the only things that I think we have control over. You know, these are things that we understand. You know, our kids do better when they're in school. You know, that's why we bring in small groups. We understand that. We understand that there's some kids that, you know, virtual school is just not for them. We understand that. And we understand the other side, that some kids are thriving doing virtual school. So we don't want to punish those kids either that decide that if we do go to hybrid 50-50, that they do not get a chance to participate. We don't. I mean, the NMA has made that decision as well. So if your kid decides to stay hybrid, they do get to participate. Now, we don't say that we're not going to hold them accountable. There's got to be some accountability to those kids as well. Just like we hold them accountable when they're in school, there has to be accountability for those as well.
Some of those kids that are doing good right now in hybrid, I mean, in virtual schools, are probably going to say, heck with it, I can't play. Why should I try?
I didn't understand the questions. Can you repeat that?
Huh? I'm just telling you that some of those kids that are doing great on the computer, and then they turn around and tell them you can't play.
No, they
might
can.
just say, well, the heck with it. Why should I try?
They can. So if we go hybrid and they choose to stay virtual, those kids can still participate. Like I said, we would still have to hold them accountable to making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to. They're doing their job online. As much as the kids that are going to school, it's a lot easier to hold kids accountable, the ones that are showing up to school. You know, we have them in front of us. We can see if they've turned in an assignment. It's easy to hold those kids.
So you're telling me that the kids that don't want to go hybrid and stay home and work on the computer can still play?
Yes, according to the NMA guideline that came out yesterday, yes. Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. Yes, sir.
Right. Well, that was my question, because it's
Yes,
not
sir.
fair for them if they can't.
They can. They can. But like I said, you know, it just won't be a free for all. We do have to have some accountability in place. I've given you a lot of information. I've given you a lot to think about. You know, the only thing that I do ask is that, you know, if it's possible to make a decision on pods, whether you want to make an addendum or make a suggestion on modifying those pods, I believe that it is appropriate at this time to bring our kids in a 4-to-1 pod.
Mr. Diaz, may I add something? Mr. Cordova, you had asked about band. I know right now Mr. Gearhart is working a lot with the National Federation for the band students. We have purchased over $1,000 worth of PPE equipment for the band to get them going and playing. So hopefully he has stated that in the next couple of days that it may be reversed in order to allow the band members to come forward. Again, a lot of parents and some teachers feel that their activities are overlooked. We have Skills USA, we have FFA members who are wanting to participate in competitions. And so we're trying to get everything going, not just athletics, but also the activities. Because we feel FFA, Skills USA, band is just as important as the athletics.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya. I agree.
Mr. Diaz, I have a question. Are
Yes,
we are we running up against any deadlines as far as letting the NMA know whether or not we plan to participate and compete in any sports, fall sports, winter sports?
Yes, sir. So the first thing on the is going to be obviously fall sports. They want a February 15th answer. And that's right around the corner. I mean, I don't make these dates up. They want a February 15th answer to opt out. We can always opt in. Okay, we can always opt in. So if we say on February 15th that we are not going to, because we're not ready to start at this certain time, if we land somewhere in between where it is safe for our kids to compete and it's, we can do it, we can always opt in. Now, the thing that it might affect is our eligibility to go further than just our district.
Oh, is this new?
Yeah. So it would be further than just our district. So we would not if we couldn't play all of our district games, then we could not go to a state tournament, which I've talked to the coaches this year, and I've been very frank, and I try to be as transparent as possible. And I tell them this year, if we provide anything, we provide an opportunity. If that means that we don't gain points on max preps because our schedule isn't too strong, or certain things or certain criteria don't fall into place, or doesn't matter, because I think the important thing at this point, if we are in a safe place, is to provide opportunities for our children, opportunities for our kids. And that's all we're asking for. We're asking for an opportunity. And I think a good start is pods. And let's see where it goes. Let's see what happens within those pods. At this point, a 4-1, I think is appropriate. And if the state opens up, and if we're in a better situation, which I'm grateful for Grant County that we're in a yellow, hopefully that improves. And with those improvements, maybe the state opens up. But at this point, I think being in a 4-1 pod is appropriate, and I think we can mitigate and do it safely. Any other questions?
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that, Mr. Diaz.
And I think there should be a distinction made, though, when we consider pods, as to whether the gym and indoor type activity would be a part of that, or if it's just all going to be outdoor. I support all the outdoor, but I have reservations without the ventilation being ready.
Right. So that being said, the target date was the February 15th. I agree with you. I would prefer that we have those ventilations in place, but I would like to say that, or maybe make a decision that when we do have those in place, that we can move indoors. I think most of us and most of the coaches are in agreement that we would be okay with that. Our baseball and softball would be practicing right now anyway, outdoors. That's what they do. They get used to this cold weather. They're ready for it. Some other coaches like this basketball coach can't deal with it so much. But when we're in a safe place and we have everything that we need in place, I would want to move indoors if that was a possibility.
Any other comments? Okay, moves us to item 5, finance. Mr. Mendoza.
So are we not making a vote on whether or not to reopen to allow pods?
It's not an action item.
Is there any way to make it an action item tonight? I think it's important to consider that. I think we're not doing our kids justice by not making a vote on that.
That will be something that probably be made in an administrative decision, because we can't do that right now because this agenda has already been published and there would be a violation of Open Meetings Act.
However, there is the possibility to include it in the next meeting, which is February 8th, correct?
I guess.
I think I'd rather have the board be part of that decision and it be included on the February 8th agenda.
It can be done, Mr. Guardiana. We can do that. That's the earliest we can move on this. Irene, make sure it's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Terry, you're on, please.
Did everybody get in their packets a review of bills?
Yes.
Okay. Those are December bills. It's relatively small. We just had an abridged month for December, so there wasn't a whole lot of activity in December. Does anybody have any questions on the review of bills?
No, I didn't get an agenda.
No.
I don't.
I did receive it, and thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Mendoza, can you just recommend that the review of bills be approved?
Yes, is everybody, any other questions before we go on? Okay, with that, the administration recommends that you approve as presented by Ms. Huguin.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Second, Cordova.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any other questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I still abstain. I still don't think we have the adequate review of these by either the audit committee or by staff to certify and assure that all the requirements were met. And in addition, I had requested the documentation for some of the previous expenditures under Bank of America, and all I got was a table saying what they were spent on, but I didn't get the documentation of the requests and what the amounts were for.
Did I not send you the list of everything that was charged and what it was for?
You sent me a spreadsheet, one spreadsheet
Yes.
that contained the amounts and a brief explanation, but not the source
Yes.
documents, which I had requested.
Okay, what I would ask is if we need to change the format, because more and more we're going to Bank of America and we're going to credit card because vendors do not accept purchase orders. So in this, do we need to change the format by which we present the bills? Because there's going to be Bank of America repeatedly. And so is it going to be a consistent, like we have to put all the receipts together, we have to bring the receipts to the board or to the finance committee? You know, how are we going to handle that?
I think you're making it more than what it is. It's a request for specific ones, and that should happen whenever there is a request for any specific line item. To apply it to all of them, I think would be overstated.
It was all of the charges that you requested for Bank of America for those 2 months.
Yes, but there were only so many. That's not like it was anywhere near a quarter of those. It was much less than that.
My statement is that if this is going to need to be happening over and over, this is going to be something that increases over time because vendors are not are not accepting purchase orders anymore. So it's going to be a consistent in the review of bills that there are a number of Bank of America charges. And so it would be nice if we could get to a point where we have a standard procedure of how you want to do it, or you just want it for those months that the month that you asked, because going through and compiling, that you're going to have to come in and get them, because those Bank of America bills get pretty thick as far as receipts go.
I understand. Again,
Okay.
it was just for the ones requested. And the other part is, if we're going to change anything systematically, I think the best position that the board could have is the audit committee do what it's supposed to do and ensure that the processes are correct in terms of the way they're reviewed and processed, and give us a level of assurance that there has been due diligence in the purchases made, and that there is oversight to make sure that purchases are done with the constraints that they're given and not for any other personal use or misuse. And
That's where our auditor does that.
no, our auditor does not do that. Our auditor does that on an annual basis on issues that are called material. It does not go into areas of, say, less than $10,000, because they consider that to be immaterial. After session after session after session that we've attended in the meetings that are put together by the School Board Association, they clearly state that the function of the audit committee is to ensure that these expenses are done correctly, that there's adequate segregation of duties, to which we don't do anything. We do absolutely nothing to look at segregation of duties. We do nothing to look at the adequateness of the appropriation or expenditure. Sorry, but that's where we're at.
So I just ask if you would make a decision as to how you want to handle it, and then have Mr. Mendoza, let me know accordingly how you guys want to handle it.
That's fine by me. I'd like to get those that I requested the first 2 months ago.
We have them ready for you, Mr. Guadiana. You're gonna need to figure out when you need to come in and review those. We have those ready and pulled for you.
Okay, I'll be there tomorrow morning.
Okay, we have a finance meeting at 9.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was hoping so, because we haven't received any of the information. I had requested that we get the budgets per school as the way the state is supposed to receive them. And it would be nice to review those.
Right, but we did, I know this is the sidebar because it's a committee thing, but we had said that we would provide that information on the second board meeting, a second finance, because we're gonna have 2 this month. That's what I understood.
It was supposed to be for this month so that we could get a good start on planning for the next year's budget. So
Okay.
It is a sidebar conversation. I look forward to being.
Okay, we need to move on. Mr. Gomez? We got a motion and a second on the floor.
Yes.
Mr. Cordova?
I vote yes, but also I'd like to ask Mr. Warden, if you have gone to Santa Fe or on the computer and you have found these duties for the audit committee, please forward them to me. Thank you.
Frank Gomez was that one of them that I sat on and I asked that question specifically. And I'm sorry, he was there when this was asked. And I will forward any information that I do have in terms of what the finance committee is supposed to do. I'm surprised that
Not the finance, the audit.
Yeah.
Audit committee.
I'm talking about the finance committee.
Oh, well, then you're saying that the audit committee didn't do anything, so let's have it.
I said pertaining to the purchases that we do every month.
Myself, I vote yes. Motion carries. Moves us to superintendent report. You're mute, Mr.
You're
Mendoza.
muted.
Okay, this is going to be a quick report, loss of enrollment, and she will forward information to you all to back up what she's saying. So, Ms. Varela, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, so on 80th day, our enrollment was district-wide is 1,056. Our beginning of year enrollment was 1,087. I do have it in a chart by grade levels, so I will forward you a copy of that tomorrow so that you can have it for your records. Any questions?
Would that be particular to every school or is just aggregate?
Actually, I have, this one right here is district. I do have another sheet by school, by grade.
I would love that, please.
Okay, so I'll send you the whole file, which would have,
Thank you.
it'll be an Excel spreadsheet, and on the bottom, it'll be a tab for each school, and then the last tab would be district.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item B.
Item B, the next board meeting will be February the 8th and 2/21 via YouTube live stream. So this is a week from, no, next Monday, okay? It'll be report. Next item, Mr. President, members of the board, is our student rep. Talia, are you here? Are you still on? Mr.
I'm
Dean?
here.
Yay, she made it. Go ahead, please, Tony.
Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. Today is more of a, not such a report, but a talk. I very strongly urge you all to really consider letting us move on and stop being so scared to allow us back due to the possibility of getting sick. Probably 90% of the student population is under the age of 16. So we can't even get vaccinated as it is. So as far as vaccinations, it would just be juniors and seniors and then teachers and staff getting vaccinated. So what's the difference between now and just when the older population is getting vaccinated to where majority of the student body is not? Doubling back to my comment earlier, a lot of futures are in jeopardy here. It's your guys' jobs to listen to the community, to listen to the students. We're the ones that are getting mostly affected. No matter what decision you guys make, it ripples down to us. So just remember that the hybrid is only for the students who choose to attend and for the teachers that are willing to be back in the class. Not letting us go back is taking away the opportunities that our neighboring schools are given. And that's just not fair to us. And that's all I have to say.
Hey, Toya, I just want to say I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Toya. Any other questions?
Thank you, Talia.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say that I appreciate your comments, and granted, I think one of the biggest concerns for the teacher part is should be remedied soon. I would hope so, and I would hope we're urging whatever resources they can mobilize to get the vaccination to the teachers, because they are more susceptible to a more acute case of the virus than are the students. But I especially like the fact that you brought up that the neighboring schools are there already, and we should take a good reflection onto why is it we're not there yet. To which I hope we can get there very quickly. But thank you for your concerns, and know that it's most of ours goal to get there too.
Okay. Okay, moves us to public input. Victor?
Yes, sir. I'll continue from where we left off. There's a whole bunch of them.
They're ugly. I'm reading them. They're ugly. If you read them all, they're ugly. I hope you're on mute.
Okay, go ahead, Victor.
Okay, so I got a Sarah Ortiz. She says, read all the emails that have been sent. Arthur Quintana, yes, read them. We need to hear all. Public input is very important. Steven Gonzalez, thank you for reading my comments. Now let's hear the responses. Arthur Quintana, responses would be greatly appreciated by admin and all involved. Cobre Indian, response to comments would greatly be appreciated. Arthur Quintana, this is why people do not attend, because we get no responses. Cobre Indian, exactly. Victor, can you ask them to respond to the comments, not just acknowledge that there's comment? And at Treviso, nothing gets answered. Steven Gonzalez, Mr. Mendoza will not answer. We will have Jose Carrillo call. Cobre Indian, that's what the meeting is for, to answer what you can. Why personal? Why so personal? It's public. Steven Gonzalez, that's what's wrong with. That's a wrong statement, Mr. Sepulveda. Contact info is always on mine. It took you 4 months to call me after many emails. Brandy, I'm very thankful with all the Cobre Consolidated District stability that has been provided in remaining remote, as the hybrid model did show instability when positive cases arise. There's another one, Steven Gonzalez. Mr. Sepulveda, you work for the community. Hold those accountable for and quit making excuses. This is a joke. Ana Treviso, if Silver is in school, they found filters at work. Why haven't we? Steven Gonzalez, it's evident you, Mr. Sepulveda, are on Mr. Mendoza's lap and do not have 1 ounce of care for anyone but yourself and how you appear to him and few others only. Shame on you. Joba Molina, I agree that the public input is important and validated in responses, but there is formality to addressing public concerns during the in-person meetings. There has to be some sort of process of formality to this online model as well. Horace Jaramillo, point of order. The item agenda is public input. Steven Gonzalez, I'll send you an email to that address. Thanks, Victor. Cobre Indian, everyone would like to see responses. Bethany Zamora, I think parents would like a solid answer. Are we coming back this year or not? As a parent of 2 Cobre students, I am wondering if reopening is even possible. Steven Gonzalez, that's false. Answer them now. That's not okay. We deserve answers. We have sat on this since March. I don't care what changed. You haven't done anything. They will only reply to comments at the convenience. Baloney. Phyllis Hollenbeck, I would like to see the board and administration consider still opening this year, even if we can't open till April or May, because students will need time to learn the procedures of hybrid model and better to that this year and start smoothly next year. Cobre Indian, can you respond? Can you have responses due promptly, like this week? If it weren't okay for our kids, there wouldn't be a Cobre district in the first place. We deserve immediate answers. Arthur Quintana, if we're going to get private responses, that defeats the purpose of getting the community involved. People do not want to get singled out. And then there was our response from the support. All emails be forwarded to each school board member, and response will be returned by the board member and also posted for public viewing under the Board of Education section on the website. We had a Danielle Esqueda. Good job, Mr. Holguin and Guadiana. As always, the board members don't answer the questions and no transparency. Keep up the good job, George Esqueda. Steven Gonzalez. Transparency like mud, I see. Clear as mud as always. Danielle Esqueda. Appears that Only a select few get all the information. Those trying to change are left out of the loop. Stephen Gonzalez, Cobre District has gone downhill. It's because no one speaks up. Speak up. Don't be afraid of them. They are in the wrong. Hold them accountable. Be your kid's voice. Compa. George Skeda, you try to speak up and get ignored. Have experienced this firsthand in the past. Again, another example of everyone not getting the information. Someone should be reviewing documents before information is sent out. Comes to accountability. Cobre Indian, who's doing the sanitizing? Ana Treviso, this late in the school year, what sports are you talking about? George Esqueda, will these comments that have been added since the first public input agenda item be read under the second public input agenda addressing this to Mr. Rambula? I had a Sherry Leipart. The people who took the time to send their questions and comments to the email addresses got gypped. We were all led to believe our comments and questions were going to be addressed at this meeting. George Esqueda, the 90 days is not true, speaking from her firsthand experience. Cobre Indian, so after 2 hours of listening, asking questions, getting no responses and what's happening, what's up, what's the deal, what's going on? Give up Assad. Stephen Gonzalez, can someone please allow our ends of the school to answer the 90-day test rule? There's more to it, and that Mr. Diaz does not have the credentialing to answer that. Hampton Burnett answered, Mrs. Treviso, it is understanding that NMAA is still going through with all sports at this time. The fall, winter, and spring schedules for each sport has been condensed by NMAA to be able to fit all in. However, spring sports have a longer time frame than the rest. The NMAA has emphasized these sports as they did not occur last year. Stevie Dominguez, Stephen, we'd be glad to provide the accurate information in regard to the 90-day testing for the board prior to next week's meeting. Arthur Quintana, kids are working out at the gym at this time, eating out at Walmart, etc. Like Mr. Diaz said, there's going to be a risk all the time. We need to adapt like other schools and teams are doing. Stephen Gonzalez, Mr. Sepulveda, that is not you to decide. Not for you to decide. Stevie Dominguez, Mr. Diaz, the risk they all take is probably just as high risk of childhood obesity, depression, diabetes, teenage suicide. Bethany Zamora, I truly believe that the board and administrators are working hard to come up with answers and solutions. There are quite a few issues being discussed and processes. Stephen Gonzalez, educate yourself. Mr. Sepulveda, you should not have the power you have or the power you think you have. Thank you, Stevie. Please educate us all. Much appreciated. Arthur Quintana, we can totally relate to you, Mr. Diaz. Sherry Leipart, I also appreciate the efforts Mr. Diaz is putting into the kids' overall well-being with finding ways that they can participate in sports again. Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Bethany Zamora, 100% Mr. Diaz. Stephen Gonzalez, it seems to me that Mr. Sepulveda has his mind made up. He's not even considering anyone selfish, to put it nicely. And then you had our Trujillo boys. Thank you, Mr. Diaz, for your hard work. It's represented well within this presentation. Bethany Zamora, very well thought out and presented. Danielle Skeda, Mr. Diaz, good presentation and responses, unlike others. Stephen Gonzalez, you did your homework. That is evident, Mr. Diaz. George Skeda, sorry, unlike others wanting to only argue. Arthur Quintana, air filters question. We have to move fast. Please consider board for our seniors and our kids. Cobre Indian, cheerleading. Wanted to know about cheerleading. Stephen Gonzalez, pay attention, board members. Look at the freaking power you have right at your hands. You can make or break many kids. Arthur Quintana, good point. Kids are already in pads. You had a student, Joseph Montenegro. Students are failing now. Angie Dominguez, what does this mean for the kids who do online academy? Will they be told they cannot participate? Maureen Peru posted the video showing the indoor and outdoor pods are now up on the Cobre Facebook page. Arthur Quintana, do we have to decide by February 15th for all fall sports? Stephen Gonzalez today. Mrs. Sally Marcus said February 15th each school needs to know if they participate for fall. Am I wrong? Amen. Thank you. Arthur Quintana, thank you. Cobre Indian, thank you, Nelson. Kids at Heart, did anybody get sick the last time pods were allowed back in October? Stephen Gonzalez said vote. Arthur Quintana said we have a time frame. Stephen Gonzalez said well. Danielle Esqueda, is it on the agenda? Please let's get this going. Annette Acosta posted indoor pod works. The work looks really good on the mitigation strategies. Take a look. Stephen Gonzalez said, I guess, unbelievable. Mr. Sepulveda, thanks for trying, Mr. Mendoza. Annette Acosta, good job to the high school staff thinking through the pods to make them safe. George Esqueda, what makes the pod agenda item different than the competency policy agenda item? They are both on the agenda, thus making them an action item. Stephen Gonzalez, Mr. Mendoza, Mrs. Sepulveda should be asked to resign immediately. This is unbelievable. Danielle Esqueda, apparent that the president of the board doesn't understand or know the rules, Robert's rules for conducting meetings. Arthur Quintana, good job, Toya. Cobre Indian, not just you, Gabe. Stephen Gonzalez, Mr. President, needs to resign immediately. Mr. Mendoza, shame on you for not having our kids' backs. Super inconsiderate, and you have failed miserably. Listen to Toya. Stephen Gonzalez, listen to their voices. We all see it, just don't understand how they are allowed to continue in their position. Again, good job, Mr. Holguin and Guadiana. Bethany Zamora, good job, Toya. Arthur Quintana, we all see it. Trujillo boys, Mr. Sepulveda, please resign. It's clear you disconnected to real issues. Respect those who attempt to achieve transparency and accountability. Stephen Gonzalez, you should take into consideration that medical staff, frontline workers have been working nurses without a vaccine. Feel free to call me. I'll be happy to answer them in the tone I have for you. You have my number, gentlemen. Joseph Montenegro, I go to Snell and more than half of the kids are failing because there is no motivation for good grades without sports. And then the last one is Robin Alvarado. How many students will be allowed in a high school classroom? And I have forwarded you guys all emails for the support site, all to your emails. That is all.
I think there were some questions that could be responded to. And I would offer opportunities to do that if the administration or the board would like to do so.
Sir, I can answer the question on how many students would be in the high school classrooms. It does depend on the size of the classroom, but it ranges from anywhere from 12 to 20 in our biggest classroom.
Thank you, Marie.
And do we have room, Marie, to separate them six feet apart?
Yes, sir, we do have the desks separated 6 feet apart. We also have the option, if a class is bigger than we need, we do also have the Performing Arts Center where we can certainly get plenty of students in there 6 feet apart as well. So we do have options, but yes, we are ready for the 6 feet apart, absolutely.
And those that we have to move into the Performing Arts Center, we would be moving the teacher there with them too.
Of course, and I don't really foresee that need because we do have one of our science classrooms that can with the 6 feet apart accommodate 20 students. And so looking at the numbers, it shouldn't happen. If it does, it would happen very minimally, but of course, yes, the teacher would be with them.
Okay,
Come on in and ask.
other things.
Hold on.
Mr. Sepulveda, I would like to address one item that keeps coming up in regard to the filters. So we are able to open our schools without having those air purifiers in place. It says, this is from the latest reentry guidance from PED, and it says districts and schools unable to immediately install MERV 13, which is the only one that they were requiring at the time, or its equivalent, must work with their operations staff to take the following actions. Run central air fan continuously, open dampers to increase airflow, open windows and doors, and then we could also use portable fans. So I know a lot keeps coming up that the district is not ready, but the state is giving us permission to open as long as we follow these guidelines that are given here to us in the guidance document.
A point of clarification in terms of the last board meeting, we had a presentation made by Mr. Peru about a different filter that we were capable of installing with staff that we have on board that would meet criteria. And are we going to do that? And where are we with that?
Yeah. I'll have Mr. Peru answer that one.
Yes, sir. On those, what we did is we put the max filter that we could do. We ordered some more filters, and our HVAC person, Mr. Jaime Treviso, has been installing them and putting in. What we did is we put the highest capable one that we could. It's not a MERV 13. They're more like 11s and 10s, and that's what we put in because that's the only thing that our systems could handle. And we thought with the air purification and those filters, we should be able to do everything that it needs.
How many are installed and how many need to go?
Those I don't have those numbers. I know we've been doing as we get them, we put them in. If you want, I will have those numbers for you tomorrow.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
My dad's on.
Anything else?
No, sir, not at this point. We will go to this list when we get them and we'll respond.
And I wanted to make a comment as a parent, and that is, I've talked to certainly the teachers of my kids, and I'm really impressed that they're not willing, they wouldn't like to send the kids into the ingenuity program, that they would want to stay, they would want them to stay within their instruction. And I think that demonstrates a great deal of commitment. And while there's been a lot of comments here that we need to seriously address, we should celebrate that the teachers are so vested in our students that they're doing the best they can. And I would just want to express my gratitude to what it is they do.
Okay, anything else? One of the things that I would like to say is in view of the comments that we just heard today, and that is that if they want a response, they should put it into the district office, probably in writing with their name and address, so that we could respond if we don't have the answer. And they could bring the question, so we would be prepared to answer the question. Because some of those we did not answer. And some of those comments that were there at the end, it were just two people talking between each other. So let's address the comments directly in order to, we can have an answer for them. Some of those comments, there's no answer to them because it was just two people talking between each other.
With respect of their name and having it written, I believe that's already there in the email. It would just be a matter of getting their address to have a response given to.
Yeah. Address or phone number so that we could respond by phone or by mail.
Mr. Sepulveda, this is Gabe. I'd just like to To make a comment, you know, I'd like to remind the board that we're all on the same team and that we should maintain some professionalism and respect for each other's opinions when we're speaking. You know, body language speaks volumes, and it just appears to me that we're not doing that. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Gabe. Anything else? Okay, items for next agenda. The only thing that I have is the item that we tabled.
So I have one thing that I sent as a request via email. I would like to get Kathy Whiteman from WNMU. She's the dean or the chair for the Natural Resources Department, and the Gila National Forest, Silver Schools, WNMU have been working together to develop a wildland fire curriculum that would, you know, be a part of the dual credit program as well. So Kathy made an offer to come and present or Dr. Whitman made an offer to come and present at the school board meeting. So I'd like to get her on the agenda for that.
Okay. This is the lady that you and I talked about.
Yes, correct. Yes. And then the other thing that I'd like to see on the agenda as action items from now until the end of the year is making a decision on whether we should re-enter school as hybrid or complete in person, as well as a decision on whether, as an action item, whether or not to start pods and start allowing our kids to compete.
Okay, those were two items, right?
Yes, re-entry of school and re-entry into sports.
Okay, so that would be retracting the motion that we made a while back to stay for the first 9 weeks, which would put us into about the 11th of March, right?
No, I'd like to do
Or
it
stay.
every meeting starting February 8th. I'd like to, you know, vote on re-entering school and vote on restarting sports.
I don't think we made a commitment that we would do it on the next 9-week period. I think it was still open. That's a point that we thought might happen, but I don't think we ever had a vote saying that that's what we were going to accept. So I agree that this was something that we had said we'd consider every single meeting.
I thought so too, and I had sent an email requesting that way back in September, but it didn't make it on the agenda as an action item, apparently.
For every meeting.
Yes.
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 I'd also like to recommend, Mr. Sepulveda, is that we bring back the reopen pods for an action item next, this coming board meeting.
Okay. Get all that, Irene?
I'd like to recommend also that when we discuss the review of the status of reentry of buildings, that we have a specific discussion on the readiness of the physical readiness of all the buildings, of all the schools. It's again a question. There's the outstanding thing about the heating and air conditioning in Hurley Elementary has been an ongoing system, an ongoing concern for many, many months, at least from July on. And I'd like to see those items itemized in terms of they're done, and those things that are not done and an anticipated date of completion.
Yeah, I think that we need a list of things that are done and things that are not done, so that we can make a decision on the reopening thing. And also, by that same thing, is a survey on or a number of teachers that are willing to come back without getting the vaccine. And teachers of those that don't want to come back until they do get it.
Agreed. Also, the provisions for lunch in the classrooms.
Yeah. We need Alma will be presenting on that, Mr. Gordon. Also, Mr. Sepulveda, we have an update. ASA Architects will address the board and present a plan for the design of the gym and the location of the gym that's going to be built at the high school. No, he's not coming here. He'll be online. So that's George. Did I say that correct? ASA Architects,
Yes, sir. It is ASA Architects.
and his name is it Rod? I'm sorry.
Ron Price,
Okay.
Rob
Yeah.
Price.
And we'll make sure in the packet, we'll have all that information for you. Irene, we need all the drawings that he sent us, let's make sure they get that. I don't have
Another
another
item,
one.
another item would be the mill levy.
I'm sorry, Mr. Guardiano?
Another item could be the mill levy.
Yeah, we can discuss that and present it, but we're also going to bring you an update as to that. And I need to know if, Irene, I think we need to know by tomorrow, don't we? So we have to go to the newspaper and say there's a possibility that there'll be a quorum of board members present for this discussion, question and answer discussion for the bond, not the bond, I'm sorry, Senate Bill 9 election. And then, Maureen, you'll have to please announce that for us. But let's wait for Irene to say that she's got it in. And hopefully, board members, you can tell Irene who's going to participate, because we do have to post a possibility of a quorum, but no action will be taken. That's all that I have right now,
Okay.
Mr. Sup-
Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So move, Frank.
We adjourn. Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Good night. Oh, you just have to point that out.